Ooh, hello. Has anyone on here done an identity theft package by any chance?
You don't go to the IRS.
You don't go to the IRS.
What was that?
You don't go to the IRS to do identity theft.
Well, I already did the federal trade thing.
Yeah, that's
But
all you do.
That's it?
That's what they said on the freaking Social Security card, right? You go to the Federal Trade Commission.
There is a document, publication. It's an identity theft information for taxpayers. And it says the first thing to do is file a complaint with the FTC.
Okay.
And then you contact one of the 3 major credit bureaus to place a fraud alert.
Mm-hmm.
And then close any financial or credit accounts opened by identity thieves. Then you respond immediately to an IRS notice, call the number, fill out a form 14039 identity theft affidavit. But with mine, it's not identity theft per se, it's more fraud.
Okay.
Because
Where's
it's
the fraud?
In the student loans, because they sold my promissory note on the open market. And I had only signed my promissory note with Sallie Mae. Mm-hmm. And there's 3 different banks that I know of.
That's not fraud. Banks cannot loan money. They can only buy promissory notes. Every single bank that you go to, ask them, how do I get an invite to the back office? Just ask them that. Call the manager. The back office is the private side of the bank that sells the promissory notes. Eventually, those promissory notes end up at the Treasury. The Treasury then bundles them in Treasury securities and says, hey, Federal Reserve, we need to print more cash. Will you buy these securities? You are the investor in that security.
Okay, but you can't openly sell my promissory note without my approval, and I have to fill out.
Yes, they can. You agreed to it when you signed the note.
That's not what I heard. I heard
That's what you heard.
Yep.
I'm going to send you a video right here that's 11 minutes long by John Eric Roca, where he magically, I'm going to tell you, I got to give the man some credit. But I know John Eric Roca. He's in this group. He don't pop in very often. His daughter turned 16. He went to buy a new car. Okay, he went down to Honda. And he says, do you mind if I take this home and read it? And I'll be back to finish this later. They said, oh, sure, no problem. He took it home and did a video showing you exactly the things you're agreeing to. And then when he filled his out, he scratched out and initialed what he didn't agree to. He mailed it back to him. The legal department called him up and asked him, did you do this? Yes, I did. We can't do business with you, and hung up on him. He's got a $240,000 suit on Honda right now because why? They kept his promissory note and the car. Now, I'm going to share the video.
So the note is the loan application?
All applications, credit card applications, mortgage loans, purchase agreements for car dealers, they're all promissory notes.
So when you get denied for the credit card, that's still a note, so they sell it as well?
Yes.
But aren't we able, legally by consumer law, able to rescind?
Hold on.
Repeat that.
Dawn. Okay.
Yeah.
Repeat that right.
aren't we able by consumer law to rescind the contract?
Well, yeah, you can rescind it, but rescission doesn't necessarily take care of the problem. The problem is you are an undisclosed third party investor. When you issued the promissory note, you're in the role of a private banker. You're not, you invested into this mechanism. See what I'm saying?
Okay, what's the
Yeah, I see what you're
SSA?
saying.
What's the SSA 89 then for? It's an authorization for Social Security Administration to release Social Security number verification. And the reasoning is to apply for a mortgage, to open a bank account, to apply a credit card, apply for a loan, open a retirement account, to apply for a job, to meet a licensing requirement. This is what they should have had us sign to be able to take our Social Security number and our
It's not yours.
It's
promissory
not
note,
yours.
or take the Social Security number and our promissory note and get permission to sell it.
No, they didn't need to do that. No, they didn't.
Then what's the SSA 89 for?
Authorization for the Social Security Administration to release Social Security number verification. Okay? Just because you didn't fill that out and they didn't give you that, don't mean anything. You volunteered. How many times have I had to say it, Dawn? They used to tell you, don't use it for identification. And what did the people do?
Used it for identification.
Voluntarily, just because somebody in a suit asked you for it. You've heard people say it. I mean, that equity doesn't aid a volunteer. Why do you
Then if
think
I,
why do you think I'm screaming to the freaking rooftops? What is your position when it comes to that trust? Because
Because
anything
anything
tied to the
tied to the
social
social
is an obligation of the United States. I'm going to share it again. Let me find it. March. Look at that. That's from the Congressional Record of March 9th, 1933. It says about halfway down the top paragraph, it says, under the new law, the money is issued to the banks. It doesn't say to the people. It says, under the new law, the money is issued to the banks in return for government obligations, bills of exchange, drafts, notes, trade acceptances, and bankers' acceptances. The money will be worth 100 cents on the dollar because it is backed by the credit of the nation. It will represent a mortgage on all the homes and all the other property of all the people of the nation. Now, proclamation 2039. Go look up Proclamation 2039 and pay attention to this paragraph. Now, I want you to pay attention to the paragraph right in the center where it says A, B, and C, but I want you only to pay attention to C. To authorize and direct the creation in such banking institutions of special trust accounts for the receipt of new deposits, which shall be subject to withdrawal on demand without any restriction or limitation and shall be kept separately in cash or on deposit in Federal Reserve banks or invested in obligations of the United States. That last sentence is key. This was Proclamation 2039 that Roosevelt signed when he ordered Congress. This was signed March 6th. The congressional record is from March 9th. Then you go to 18 USC 8 and they tell you what the government obligations and other securities are. How did they come up with a mechanism to track them and to have the bank account for them? Oh, wait a minute. That's Social Security account. It's their trust.
How does that work with HJR 192?
You want to know about how debt discharge works? If it's their trust and they are the principals, send them their freaking obligations and say, hey, as the registered agent, it's my duty to do what? Send all notices, all demands, and all processes to the principal. Who's the principal?
That would be the Treasury.
The trustees. And settle your damn debt.
So you're saying just to do a W-4 on it?
No.
No.
W-4 might be. You know the one thing I asked Smoking Baby months ago? And this was probably in January or February after he did the presentation in November. I said, look, my dad's a business owner. He does installation work, right? He does installation work for the box stores at that time. Sears, Lowe's, Home Depot. Okay? At the end of the year, what does Home Depot send him? A 1099. Oh, look at there. Sorry, change the subject. Urgent Google security bug found. User should update now. Oh, wow. So pay attention. So he gets a 1099. What is a 1099? I ain't talking about a 1099A, 1099C. I ain't talking about none of that. I'm talking about when you're a subcontractor. All the 1099 is telling the IRS that Home Depot issued this much credit to Piedmont Installations. Because what is money in this country? Credit. It's not Federal Reserve notes. Federal Reserve notes is a form of money. Your check card is a form of money. But what ultimately is it? It's credit. If you are issuing credit under the social to a corporation, I asked him, I said, why not use the 1099? Never got an adequate response. And in the back of my mind, that's stuck ever since. And then the other day, Felicia mentioned something about the 1099 NEC, and that's something we're looking at. NEC is not employee compensation. See, we're so caught up on that it's fraud, we can't necessarily see what is right in front of us. It's not fraud, it's their creation. That's why they have to publish. Now, if you want to argue constructive fraud, that's different. Constructive fraud, I will agree with you. Okay, anybody got anything else? I guess Jesse left. He didn't like what I was saying.
If it's granted by Congress through the Treasury, that makes them the trustees, right?
No, what makes the trustees is because they were appointed. SSA Board of Trustees. I cannot share this enough until it becomes common language. Right there. I just shared the link. They point blank tell you who the trustees are. First trustee, Secretary of the Treasury, who is the managing trustee. Why? Treasury's the bank. Second trustee, Secretary of Labor. Why? Because when you go fill out a W-4 for a job and you put the name, you put the social, and you put the address, who's the employee? It ain't you. It's the trust. Under the 14th Amendment, all corporations, all businesses, and all trusts are legal persons. The address you put on there is the office of the authorized representative / registered agent. In other words, who's getting the notice, demand, or process? The third trustee is the Secretary of Health and Human Services. Why? Title IV funding, child support, alimony, family court, CPS, all of that stuff, Title IV funding. And guess what? This is why I believe that the state is the actual beneficiary. Who gets the federal funds? It ain't you. The Commissioner of Social Security is the fourth trustee because it's the Social Security Administration. And then the last two are just part of the Social Security, so I don't pay attention to them. Now, my theory on the two vacant spots is possibly, I have no evidence of this whatsoever, just a theory. The two vacant public trustee spots is when if you go to court, that the DA and the judge is playing the role of the public trustee, that vacant spot. But they need you to come in and play the part of the dummy so they can make the trust profitable. Just my theory. And if you go in there and start saying, hey, I'm the agent, this is y'all's property, y'all can make whatever money you want on it, I'm just here to settle the matter.
What about the governors of each state?
What about what?
The governors for those vacant spots.
I am not understanding what you're saying.
Now you say those two vacant spots. So I'm saying, what if it was the governors of each state?
It wouldn't be the governors of each state, because the only potential governor it would be the state where the birth record is housed, because that birth record is their property. As of recent, I heard about a guy that actually used that to his advantage. He got a ticket and he wrote a letter to the governor of the state that he was born in, And he said, Mr. Governor, your person has an incident that needs to be handled. And he signed it as authorized representative and sent it to the governor. And he went back a few days later and the ticket was gone. That's just hearsay. I didn't witness it. Just tell you the story I heard. The only thing I can tell you that I have firsthand knowledge is what I did on my traffic ticket. And I've told that story numerous times. And I didn't even go to court. I just had a conversation with the clerk of court. See, it's tough when you are see, the government cannot make things difficult. There's this rule called the void for vagueness doctrine. Every law has to be written in such a way that the common man can understand it, or it is unconstitutional and unenforceable. And guess who complicates everything? We do. Because why? We go follow every Tom, Dick, and Harry's process instead of, one, learning the principles, and two, reading what the government publishes. A process is a method. It's not the principles of law. And if the method is complicated, there is a good possibility it might not be right. They have to make it simple. We are the common people. And if you have to go into court and look the judge in the eye and express your good faith belief on why you filled those forms out, it better not be complicated. Because why? You got to be able to express lawfully why you believed this is the right way to do. Your Honor, I might have made a mistake. It might not be right, but this is what I believe, and it's based on blah, 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 blah. This is my presumption. I mean, the IRS has no duty to or obligation to tell me anything. I'm left to figure this out for myself. I read their books. I read their rules. This is what I see written, so here's what I'm doing. What gets people into most trouble is when they are not reading the government's documents and they're listening to other gurus thinking it's the gospel. The example, the affidavit community. They say, write this stuff on paper, but they never talk about the supporting evidence that has to go with it. That's why I said, hey, you're not a U.S. citizen. Look at this FOIA request. Look what I got. You're just making a presumption like the court. Now I have a piece of evidence that says I'm not a U.S. citizen. So when I put in the affidavit, I am not a U.S. citizen, see Exhibit A. I made my claim, and here's my evidence. How easy is that? Very.
Who'd you do the FOIA request with?
The United States Citizenship and Immigration Office. And Dawn Berry can tell you the same thing. She did it. She's not the only one that did it. Other people are doing it.
They came back and said that there were no files on record.
Bingo. You did it too. See there? You're not a U.S. citizen. How can you be something you never applied for? You can't. So you did the FOIA request, you got the same result I did, same result Don did, same result everybody else that does this, same result.
Caveat that was born in the U.S.
You was born in the one of the 50 states. The 50 states has their own citizens.
Yep.
I see you, Lynn, popping in and out.
I I thought I think I kicked myself out.
It happens. See, that's why I can't scream this stuff loud enough, and it's frustrating.
It's interesting what you were saying, and so I'm actually in Canada, and I was thinking, how can, what documents do we have here that I could claim that?
Claim
Same
what?
thing. Pardon?
Claim what?
Oh, that I'm not a citizen of Canada.
Do they have a citizenship office? See, we
I'm
have the
sure they
United
do.
States. We have the United States Citizenship and Immigration Office. Now with Canada, I don't know how y'all's everything was formed. Here we have a so-called 50 states. Each of those states are sovereign countries. Okay? They created a union and created a contract and called it the federal government. That federal government is a foreign jurisdiction to each of the states, just like they are a foreign jurisdiction to each other. Okay? Is Canada the same way?
And I'm gonna, if you're interested, I was just listening to a YouTube yesterday, and it's very interesting what she has to say. Would you be okay if I sent that to you?
Yeah, go ahead, send it to me.
And yeah, I'm just I'm not quite sure how to answer that question you had.
Yeah, because that's probably going to be the key, is whether or not those each individual territory in Canada is considered a sovereign state. You see what I'm saying? If it's its own sovereign state and they created a union similar to the way the United States did, then it's possible that under the federal side, because even Canada has a federal side, that if you find your citizenship office and ask them the right question, they might say the same thing, but I can't swear to it because I really don't know anything about Canada.
Thank you. Yeah. And thank you. I will send that to you. It's very intriguing what she's discovered. Her name is Amanda Riding.
Okay.
And yeah, I'd love your feedback. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Jesse, are you finally free?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm listening.
Did you hear what about those documents I shared earlier from Corpus Juris Secundum and American Jurisprudence?
Yeah, I heard you reading it about the
Okay,
implied agent.
Yeah. They gave you their property and said, here, now use it. The problem is we're not using it right.
And by property, you're referring to the Social Security number, correct?
The name. See, Raymond Sanchez, the example I give is this. If I write a trust right now and I name it Raymond Sanchez, and we'll hypothetically say I make you, the man, the beneficiary, is that trust you?
No.
Why do we treat that trust like it is?
Because you're conditioned to. I mean, it's the only logical answer. You wouldn't do it
Yeah,
any other way if you knew better.
we are self-conditioned to, because why? We look at that name on that thing and think that's our name. It's a trust. You can name a trust whatever you want. And if you go look at an SF, look at this. Let me go get it. SS5 SF form. Okay. I want you to look at this form. And I want you to scroll to the very bottom of the page. This is an application for a Social Security card. Just pay close attention to box 1. Box 1 is all your name lines. Box 1, name to be shown on card. First, middle, last. Name, see, full name at birth if other than above. So what do our parents do? Because we're all naive, we don't read, we are ignorant of how this game is played. Name to be shown on card, we put first, middle, last. Well, that's not different, so we leave the next line, probably leave the next line blank. And then the third line really don't matter, it's other names. I mean, like an alias, nickname, stuff like that, right? So name to be shown on card, well, guess what else? Now, look at this. Here's the link. This is for what is the legal name? For SSA enumeration purposes, a legal name consists of a first name and last name. Okay? Or surname. Or surname is optional. The legal name is the name used to sign legal documents, deeds, or contracts. 1. Middle name. We do not consider the middle name or suffix part of the legal name. Whether the middle name or suffix is included, omitted, or incorrectly shown on evidentiary documents submitted with an SS5 application doesn't matter. Okay? Now, go to number 2. Translate given names and family names shown on documents submitted as SSN evidence to the first and last name on the application. Full first name and middle name is your given name. That goes in the first name slot. Family name is the last name. Now, Raymond, when you filled out the FOIA request asking for, so was you a U.S. citizen? Did you not see the term on the name box, given name and family name?
On the Social Security application?
No, the United States Citizenship and Immigration Office. When you filled it out online and you filled in the name, up top above the box, it said first, it said a given name in parentheses, first name. And last name, it said family name and then in parentheses, last name. Don't you remember that?
I put in my name in all caps and different variations of it.
Well, that's not the point. The point is well, how did they have the box's name? When I saw that on the USCIS, I said, holy crap. They know this stuff. They know the given name is your first middle combination. They know the last name is the family name. The problem is the people don't. So they see that all caps name and think that's their name when all it was the name to be shown on the card. If it's the name to be shown on card, you could have put "I am a dickhead" in the box and it would have been put it on the card. I'm being extreme because I'm trying to get y'all to realize things ain't what you think.
They were given
Because the all caps name is a corporation.
Is it? It's just the name they shown on the card. That's what the first line on the application says. Name to be shown on card. It could be anything.
If you go to the Social Security Administration website, they tell you what it is. Tell you that it's a trust.
That's right. It's a trust. And if it's a trust, it's not you. And if it's not you, then what is your relation to it? If you're not the grantor and you're not the trustees, you might be the beneficiary, you might not be. Ask them, am I the beneficiary of this account listed as follows? See what they say. If they come back and say, yes, you are the beneficiary, now you got evidence to support your claim. If you got evidence, shoot, I'd walk up into court and say, hold up, Your Honor, I'm the beneficiary. The trustees, you need to deal with them.
If you knew that you were the real beneficiary, you wouldn't start doing that in the first place. Because the real beneficiary is going to have millions of dollars and going off and doing something completely different. It's not going to be bleeping around in some court doing some nonsense.
Not only that, what's the rights of the beneficiary? The beneficiary has the right to make requests. Hey, trustees, I'm in need of a new car. My car's about to break down. Can the trustees please provide me a new car? Okay. Oh, what else does a beneficiary have the right to do? To review the books to make sure the trustees are doing their fiduciary duty. Hey, trustees, can I see the books from last year? I'd like to review them. But the beneficiary has no decision-making powers over the trust. They cannot do anything that is the trustee's duties. We presume we're the beneficiary, but yet we don't get a K-1 distribution report at the end of the year to show what our distribution is and whether or not the taxes are paid. Because on a distribution, there's a 15% tax. My dad gets his retirement. And I asked my dad, now my dad ain't no slouch. My dad is pretty smart when it comes to tax law. And I asked my dad one day, I said, so you say you're the beneficiary of the trust? He said, well, yeah, I get benefits. I said, well, do you ever get a K-1 distribution report? And he says, nope, never got one. I said, then why do you presume you're the beneficiary? And he said, I never thought of that, but that's a valid point. The reason he knows what a K-1 distribution report is because Piedmont Installations, the plumbing company, guess what? It's a private business trust. When he does a distribution, he has to fill one out for that. The trust laws apply the same if it's a private trust or a statutory trust. Still the same principles, same laws.
The issue, Pastor, is that people are mistaking beneficial rights, okay, versus benefits and privilege as a result of you putting in hard work and having an entitlement to the fruits of your labor, right? There's difference there. If I work my whole life, if I work my whole life and I bust my ass, hang on a second.
Opened it by accident.
Oh, it's okay. No big deal. Thank you. I wonder what this is about. Looks like it's a bill collector or something.
It's from the bank.
Oh, it's from the bank. I wonder what they have to say. Your account has been closed. You have asked too many questions. I am in receipt of your correspondence requesting that a bank representative complete a W-9 for your personal tax records. Please be advised that this request cannot be accommodated. You would complete the W-9 yourself and provide it to whomever necessary. Oh, well, no. This right here is a denial. Thank you. I'm waiting for that.
Yeah, send that. Take a copy of that and make a copy for your records.
Yep. So what I was saying is that if you work your whole life and you're an employee, okay, and then you set up some insurance and you have a 401k and an IRA and these things, well, those things don't have anything to do with being the beneficiary. Those are completely two different things. Okay, you can still be the beneficiary and never work a whole day in your life and get everything taken care of. It's not about that. They just need worker bees to continue on thinking that way so that their little puppet game can continue. All right. When you become the beneficiary, it's something completely different because there's a trust that has been set up for you that goes all the way back to my father, his father, and his father. Okay, started in 1933. Our fathers and everybody went down and pledged everything they had and gave it to the bankers. And somehow or another, one way or the other, we didn't get completely screwed. Somebody in there put a provision that says if you know how to reach the age of majority and you can prove it, that you can step into the beneficial position and claim whatever that consisted of, not as a beneficiary, but as the beneficiary of your own trust account. Everybody else is a beneficiary of the whole thing. And then they get to regulate that and control who gets what and how much you're going to get help. And they're trying to kill those people off and give them as limited resources as possible because it's all about crunching the numbers, right? And they know that every time somebody comes in and makes this claim, they got to pay out a whole bunch of money that they don't want to. So let's kill everybody. Let's get rid of them. We don't need them. Worthless bottom eaters. But that's what I tell people that all the time, Pastor, and they just cannot wrap their mind around the difference between benefits and privileges and entitlements from working versus being the beneficiary. It scares them or something.
Yep. Well, I say right now, I don't mind being. I was talking to John Smith. John Smith's been in here once. And I told John Smith in a private conversation, I said, look, I don't mind being the registered agent. I said, man, I'm almost 30 plus parts in labor. And I tell you what, I don't mind being the registered agent. If it's their responsibility and their obligation, let them take care of the damn obligation. Can I articulate it in a court of law, my position? Absolutely. What proved it to me was when I did that traffic ticket. Even though I heard Popeye numerous times tell his story on what he did, where he did the same thing, I didn't do it for myself. When I did it for myself, it's like, holy crap. John Smith, every time he's had to go to court, he does the same thing. He says, I'm here to handle the matter for that estate. What's your name? John, nothing more, nothing less. He provides his proof that he's the registered agent. And the last time he did it, he said that the judge looked at the DA and said, don't you ever bring somebody in here again without a last name. Well, how do I get his last name? I don't know, DA. That's between you and him.
How do you attain proof that you're a registered agent?
Operation of law. What did I just show you with American jurisprudence and corpus juris secundum?
You assign yourself as the registered agent.
Who on the back of your social security card, it says this card is property of the Social Security Administration and must be returned if we ask for it. The card wouldn't exist without the name and the number.
Right.
Your
Listen,
personal
hold on a second.
checkbook says authorized representative.
I have to kind of intervene here because now you're kind of contradicting what you were saying on the other hand, in a way, not really, but you are, because if everything you're saying is based upon a presumption, because when I look at this Social Security card, it says here, it's basically an oxymoron because it says the same thing twice. It says this card belongs to the Social Security Administration and you must return it if we ask. And then it says if you find a card that isn't yours. Well, this isn't your card. So you assuming that you're the authorized agent is a presumption. You're none of
No.
those things. No, you're none of those things. Everything you're doing is based upon a presumption because somehow or another this card wound up in your lap and you don't really know what it is or what it entails, but you know that without it you can't do anything in the system. So you're going to presume that you are this entity. You don't even know you're the authorized agent because underneath there you can't see that unless you have eyes to see, right? Most people don't. But even that, even if you could see that, it's still a presumption. All right, you're not the authorized agent until you assign yourself to be the authorized agent. And if you haven't done that, it's still a presumption. Now you're still trespassing.
The difference is, Jesse, is by operation of law, it is implied or expressed. In my personal opinion, move, Luna, move. Based on the law, in this case, it's implied. It is implied because why? Vital Records admitted they own the name, they own the record. That means, hey, wait a minute here. If they own that, then how did it get to the trust? It got to the trust because of the contract between the state and the federal government. Okay? So the trust was appointed to the Social Security Administration, and their website tells you who the trustees are. They don't deny that it's a trust. They tell you it's a trust. Okay? You're not a trustee. They list the trustees. So you're not the grantor, you're not the trustee, you might not be the beneficiary. There ain't but one office left. And because it's on everybody's personal checkbook, authorized representative, that's a synonym for registered agents.
Everything is about a declaration, right?
Now, how can you appoint yourself as you put it? Do the acceptance of office and send it to the Secretary of State.
Listen to what I'm saying, though. If you don't declare who you are, then everything that you're doing is based upon a presumption. You're presuming you're the authorized agent, but you haven't really declared it. You just put an ambiguous signature on there and left it open. And that's how you sign everything because you don't understand how trust law works. So inside of the trust, you're nothing. You're not part of the res. You're just a worker bee. Right. Well, actually, I guess you are. You're the property. They've got you inside of the hull.
Nope, they cannot. Nope, they cannot own the man. Slavery and involuntary servitude is illegal according to the Northwest Ordinance.
You're still in a state of bondage, Pastor. It doesn't matter if you want to call it not being a slave, volunteering. At the end of the day, you're still in bondage, whether it's by choice or you're not. You wake up with chains on. You still got fucking chains on, man. You know what I'm saying? So what are you supposed to do?
Stop volunteering, but do it the right way.
Oh, well, I'm not disagreeing with that. All I'm saying is just get authorization so that you can use the name in whichever capacity is the agent that you want to hold, whether it be beneficiary, whether it be, I wouldn't suggest being trustee. You know what I'm saying? For sure.
Okay, hold on.
You can't be the trustee.
If the trustees from the Social Security Administration assigned you that number, wouldn't that make you the registered agent or beneficiary?
And you,
not
a number. They signed it a number.
They signed the trust a number.
That's right. It's not
Yes,
you.
they
You
assigned
don't
a
have to
trusted number and gave you the possession of the card.
That's right.
Okay,
I
so
think that
what does
you
that make us if
exactly.
we are in position and use that for everything?
That's why I'm saying what I'm saying. You can't say you're the beneficiary unless you have evidence to support that fact. My
Right.
personal opinion is because the state is just as bankrupt, right? They're the beneficiary because they are the ones receiving the federal funds from that account. Okay. That means you only have one office left. Well, you went and got a personal checking account. It's clearly stated on the signature line, authorized representative. When you go in and do a signature card, they need your signature card because why? It goes right back to the authorized representative. So that way they have evidence of who that position is. And what is the synonym for authorized representative? Registered agent. Now, I will agree in part with Jesse on if you want to get it solidified, do the acceptance of office and send it to the Secretary of State. Because
I have a question.
one of the things I did not know, and KW brought this out with his court case. If there is no letter accepting the office at the Secretary of State's office, then service of process is deficient. I said, damn, I did not know that. Now, what's your question, Tina?
Pastor, you mentioned if I'm not a beneficiary and if I'm not a trustee, who am I when it comes to the traffic ticket?
It's in the name of the trust. You just think it's your name. They're accessing the account.
Okay, but they want me to show up for the court. They want me to be present.
They need you to play the part. Okay? Here, I'll show you.
What part? What role?
I'm getting ready to show you the definition.
It makes sense, Pastor, now that I'm thinking that you're probably going to have to do both. And that's
Now
probably
look.
what's one of the pieces of paper that you send to the Secretary of State, right, when you're doing your land filing process and you're filing all your documents and you're sending out your packets.
Now look at this right here. It says this is the definition of the word dummy. A party who has no interest in a transaction but participates to help achieve a legal goal. What's the legal goal of the court? To fund their business. That's why they monetize the case on the backside. They need you to play the part. The attorney isn't there representing you, they're representing the estate. Now read definition 2. It says a party who purchases property and holds legal title of another. And it says compare to straw man.
Like a puppy master.
Yes. Now, let's see if I've got straw man in here. If
So
not, I'll have to
done
go download
this
it.
now?
No, I don't have it. I have to go download it. Do what, Tina?
So it looks like I'm a dummy in this case?
Yes. What proved this to me was when I had that 7-year court battle with Family Court and I did the GSA bonds. The 5th court-appointed attorney ran for the hills. He filed papers to get took off the case. And he admitted to the accounts and said I was interfering with his fiduciary duty. Okay. And after the case was over, I called him and talked to him and I recorded the phone call. And I asked him, I said, what did you think about those documents I put in the court? And he said, I can't talk to you about that because of attorney-client privilege. I played that phone call for many people. And they looked at me and said, wasn't that your attorney? I said, no, it wasn't my attorney. I said, that's what I've been telling everybody. He was there in the office of trustee because it's a bankruptcy proceeding. It's a bankrupt entity. Why do you think when you file bankruptcy, what do they call the attorneys? Trustees. They're representing the estate. The estate isn't you.
Right, but what I'm trying to understand, why do they want me to plead guilty, not guilty, show up for the court and find me in this case? I know that it's all prepared, but why they want my
the reason they want you to is because they need somebody to fill the part so they don't hold the liability and they can make money. Because look at the jail, look at people that go to jail for non-violent offenses, and look at the amount of money involved. They go to the courts, they jump through these different processes or counselors and this and that and the other, so the money flows to all these different agencies. It goes through the jail, it goes through the prison, it goes through all of it.
They switch prison. They be switching like 5 or 7 prisons. I did 2 years, and they switched me up a couple of times. They make money through that.
Yeah, they make money through it all.
What if I do not fill that office or that person's position? What if I refuse to contract, let's say?
Well, I know when I did my traffic ticket recently, that's what I tell people. I said, what did I tell them? I said, it's an obligation. I told them, I said, I need to verify your EIN because I'm in possession of a debt instrument. Because what is a ticket? It's an instrument of value, which means it's an obligation of the United States. And I said, I need to verify your EIN for tax reporting purposes. And I read the EIN, and she says, you might need to talk to Barbara down at the town hall. I said, I'll get her number here in a moment. And Dawn has heard the phone call, if I'm not mistaken. She can confirm all this. Okay? I said, I'll get her number here in a moment. And I said, my next question is, I need to know the penal sum for this instrument. Now, this is where the lady lied. It says, I don't know what that is or how to get it. Anybody that's been in this movement long enough knows that every one of these cases have a penal sum. So I said, I give her the instrument number. She says, are you giving me a ticket number? I said, no, ma'am. I said, if you believe that's what it is, that's on you. I said, the way I see it, it's an instrument of value or a debt instrument, which means it's an obligation of the United States under Title 18, USC 8. And then she asked, was I the name? And I said, ma'am, that name is owned by the United States. They're the secured party in this matter. And now I meant to say registered agent, but I slipped up because it was the first time I did this. And I said beneficiary. But what I said after that was, it is my duty to notify the principal of anything that affects its interest. And that's the duty of the registered agent. Okay, so she says, can you hold a minute? I said, yeah. She comes back and said, oh, that matter's been sealed and dismissed. That was 12 days before court. And I said, can you please send that signed order to the address you have on file? She says, oh, no, I can't send that to just anybody. You're going to have to verify who you are. So I said, okay, you'll have a letter next week. So I rehashed the phone call. I rehashed all of that, showed that I said, look, I'm just the registered agent. And I said, and the court has 10 days to produce said order. She got my letter on the 24th and must have went, oh, crap, because she printed the order out that day on a Thursday from way upstate New York to down south to my house. And it was at my house on Monday, over the weekend, sealed and dismissed.
So did they give you their EIN number? And did you plea before you asked for that number?
I didn't plea. I never went to court.
So you went straight and asked for their EIN number or W-9,
No,
right?
I didn't even ask them. I went and found their EIN number. Now, is it easy to find? No, you may not be able to find it. You may have to contact different parties in the state to get it.
No, it's hard to find. I couldn't find. I have a traffic ticket right now. I got it in the mail. Never was given hard copy from the police officer. It came with summons, and I'm trying to figure out what to do with it, how to handle it. I called the court to ask a couple of questions. They don't know anything. They told me straight in the face, you must plea or we will issue the warrant for your arrest. So I'm trying to figure out how to handle it. Traffic ticket.
Well, what is a plea?
There's no plea yet. I'm trying to figure out.
No, stop. What is a plea? A plea is a prayer. Who do you pray to?
Oh, not to the court. That's not to their master. That's for sure.
Well, I can tell you this. Minnesota, Crazy Mark up in Minnesota helped a guy in Florida. I think it was last year. The guy's still in jail to this day, but not because of this part. He had habitual traffic violations. Anytime they put the bitch on you, you're going to get multiple years. Okay, he had traffic violations. He had 7, 8, or 9. I don't remember how many. They put a 6-month arraignment out, and him and Boris were throwing everything, including the kitchen sink at this case, human trafficking, whole 9 yards. And then all of a sudden, one day, the court, 3 months later, decides to do the arraignment. This guy gets a notice about arraignment and calls Mark. What do I do? He said, well, they're going to ask you to plead. He said, who do you plead to? He said, a plea is a prayer. He said, when you go to court and they ask you to plead, drop to your knees and do the Lord's Prayer. And he did it 3 times. The first time he did it, this judge started, getting fussy and looking at him and said, I'm not going to put up with these shenanigans. How do you plea? And he dropped the second time. And then this time the judge is throwing papers. If you do this one more time, I'm going to hold you in contempt of court. How do you plead? And he dropped to his knees a 3rd time, did the Lord's Prayer. And the judge dismissed all of them. And then, he didn't dismiss the failure to appear on one of them. He held on to that one. And they waited 2 weeks. The guy went home, got comfortable. Then they sent him a notice. They said, you got to appear for this. He calls Mark. What do I do? He said, do what you did last time. And the guy was like, well, I got a problem doing that. I don't believe in God and this, that, and the other. And he goes to court, and the judge plays father figure and said, son, come on now. You know you're guilty of this one. And the guy says, yes, I was. And the judge brought back every one of the other charges. Why? It's a military court. They're contracted through the Cage Code with the military. They fly the gold fringe flag because it's Army territory. In the military, you are dismissed from duty. They did not discharge the office. And the guy is still in jail to this day serving habitual traffic violations. Why? He was double-minded.
Ouch. In my case, they want me to plead in mail before they even schedule court or move forward.
Yeah, they're trying to force a plea.
So,
well, if you're the authorized representative of the estate, tell them it's not your job to plead. Send it to the freaking trustees and say you have your person has an incident that needs to be settled.
who is trustee in this case? The state?
It's not in this case. It's tied to the social. Everything is tied to the Social Security Administration.
Oh, right. Yeah, Social Security number, right.
Now,
so in this case, state social, right? Administration, I mean.
Let me show you this that I found out of North Carolina.
And can you tell us the SS5 how to fill it out too? Or do you have a video how to fill it out?
If you're going to correct information, I can do that sometime. Look at this document. I want y'all to look at this document. This is out of North Carolina. It says the clerk of the Superior Court may, in his or her discretion, invest monies secured by virtue of the color of the clerk's office or as receiver in any of the following securities. Now stop. Monies. Remember what I read on the congressional record? What is money? Government obligations, bills of exchange, checks. These are securities. That's why it says in any of the following securities. Number one, obligations of the United States are obligations fully guaranteed both as to principal and interest by the United States. It's tied to the social. It is an obligation of the United States.
So, do I send them this documents to social administration or return it to the court and tell them it's the wrong person?
No, you don't say it's the wrong person. They know the person they're after. It's the social. They need you to play the part of the dummy. Now, I heard a story recently after I started showing people this. The guy actually got a ticket. He wrote a letter to the governor of the birth state, and he sent a copy of the ticket. And he said, your person has an issue that needs to be settled. And he signed it as authorized representative. What's on your checkbook? The signature line plainly says, authorized representative. He sent it to the freaking governor. Said, your person has a situation that needs to be settled. He went back a few days later, checked the courthouse, the ticket was gone. I have no evidence of this. I have no firsthand knowledge. It was a story told to me. I know people personally. Popeye has done it. Boris has done it. I've done it.
Send them
Right now, I'm helping a guy out of freaking South Carolina to do it.
You mean helping him to send the letter to the governor, right?
No, I'm helping him on a case because he waited to the last darn minute to mention it to me.
And quick question.
When you wait until court date to do things, you're already late.
Yeah, court date is not scheduled yet.
What if you show up to court and just say you're idiota?
Do what, Raymond?
What happens in the event you show up to court and just say you're idiota?
I've heard a story about a guy that did that. Now, the story goes that he walked into court the day of court, and the judge said, do you understand the charges? He said, nope, I'm an idiot. The judge said, you're an idiot? Yes, I'm the biggest idiot you'll ever find. And he says, well, and the judge is standing up got his hands up on his desk, and he said, well, since you're an idiot, get out of my courthouse. Get out of my courtroom. And as a matter of fact, get out of my courthouse. And he looks around and says, is there any more idiots in this courtroom? And not a freaking one person stood up. Because
they missed their golden
opportunity. They thought idiot meant stupid person, and people don't want to be deemed as stupid. It's not what idiot meant. Idiot meant I'm not professional. I'm not part of your society.
It's better than being a dummy.
That's right, because the dummy plays the part.
That's right. I'm an idiot. Okay, that's a good one. And the case was dismissed and charges too, right?
I don't know. It's hearsay. It's just a story I heard from Carl Lentz. I'll tell you if it's hearsay, but I can tell you, Popeye, yeah, he tells the story on that 6-hour video on my Rumble channel. It's hearsay to me, but it's his firsthand testimony.
What
I
is the
mean,
name of your Rumble channel?
I'll have to get it. Boris had a conversation with the lead counsel for Vital Records and asked him all of this stuff. Who owns the name? Who owns the record? What is it? This, that, and the other. And the freaking head attorney admitted to Boris every single thing and told Boris, there's only one thing you're missing. And Boris asked him, what is that? He said, you need to take the property, the birth certificate, the property, to the county assessor's office and have the value of the property assessed. And as soon as Boris told me that's what happened, it's like, damn, that's how you find out the value of the bond. And when I heard this story, Mark in Minnesota told me about it. And Mark said, call Boris, ask him about it. I said, Boris, you got time to talk? Yes. I said, tell me about your visit with Vital Records in Florida. And he told me about it. And some of y'all know who Boris is, some do not. And Boris has been saying the same things I'm saying for years longer than me.
I want to clarify one moment. You mentioned that the letter can be sent to the governor saying that your person has issues, take care of it. The question is, if license was issued by one state but charges or ticket from another state, where can the letter be sent? To both governors or to what state?
Where was you born?
Ohio.
That's who holds the birth record.
Yeah, in my case, it's naturalization record.
That's who owns the name. That's who created the trust. How we know this is KW's video. He was born in Ohio. He filed in the probate court in Kentucky. In the first part of the Kentucky case, the judge said they didn't have jurisdiction over Ohio's property. Okay? But the question of what was his role to that entity, they did have jurisdiction over, and they answered the question and said, yes, it is a state agency and you are the agent. And that was KW in 2013. And then I called Vital Records and recorded the phone call, and they admitted all of it. But yet, certain people fight with me over this one thing. I say if it's their property and it's that, and I'm just the agent, express the agency, say, hey, here, take care of your property.
That's interesting. I have never heard this option to let them know that they need to take care of their property.
It's an obligation of the United States. Go back through the stuff in this room that I just shared. Read through it all.
Yeah, yes, I know that. Yeah, that's right.
Congressional record of March 9th, 1933 says it's their obligation. The Proclamation 2039 says it's their obligation. They said they mortgaged all the homes and all the property of the people of the nation, so they had to give equal exchange. So what did they do? They said, here, people, use our trust. Just use it properly. The people don't.
They just didn't tell us how to use it, what the
It's,
process of steps.
they did tell us if we just read. See, it's like you got a large group of people out there that scream fraud. It's all fraud. No, it's not. They publish everything. But what do? We don't go read. We don't read their documents. We don't read their congressional records. We don't go read the statutes at large. We don't go read court cases. We don't read. Then we get in trouble, and then we complain because we don't know what to do, and we're in a bad spot when it's really our fault we're in the spot. Because they told us whose property it was at 18 when they gave us the Social Security card, and they said, here. They told us back in the day, don't use it for identification, but because some man in a suit said, we need your social, and we said, okay, here you go. We volunteered. Even though on the back of the card it says it's their property, we should have said, if we would have been smart enough, said, hold up, I can't give you that. It's not my property, it's theirs. They told me not to use it for identification. I have to listen to them. It's their property.
That is right, but some.
And guess what? I'm preaching to me too, because I was 18 once. I did the same things.
It's just very interesting. I entered the bank and I asked them to open the bank account without social. The lady didn't know what to do, so I asked her to call her supervisor. And the supervisor said, yes, it is possible to open bank account without social. You need to bring two forms of identification. And in my case, it was passport and driver license. But again, if you use driver license, they do have access to your social. So they still get it.
Yeah. You can kind of argue that point.
It's
but yeah,
like
I actually had a conversation with the office in North Carolina that regulates all the banks, and I talked to the lady, and I wish I'd have wrote it down, but I was driving and I didn't have a chance to write it down because I don't remember the website she told me to go to. But I told her, I said, I'm having an issue I have a question. It's a side subject other than my issue. I said, I know that you don't have to use a social to open up a bank account. She said, oh yeah, that's right. It's on this blah, blah, blah website. And I wish I could remember what it was, because I'd have sure contacted them and got some documents in writing.
How about, can you get a EAI number? EIN number without a social?
Yeah, you can get an EIN without a social. It's not as
How?
easy, but you can.
That's why it's not as easy. That's the hard part.
It
And how,
depends. It depends on the type of entity you're setting up. If you're going to do an LLC,
yeah.
okay, then you get one for the LLC.
Okay. How about for one for my name?
That's a sole proprietor. They still want to know the social, who's creating it.
Then what you say about the social, then I still gotta play the part. I still gotta be in the system. I still gotta give the social. But I'm not trying to use the social.
See, the way I see it is this: I don't have a problem playing a part. I just want to know what part do I play. Okay. To see, the Bible says we're to be in the world, not of the world. If you're in it, you're going to be playing a certain part.
Okay.
The question is, are you going to play the part right?
Well, what I'm trying to do is get a.
Doing good. Door 83. Okay, right over there. Okay.
I know where you are now.
Yay, they're finally going to get me loaded.
Pastor, what I'm trying to say, if I wanted to get a EIN number, but without a social sole proprietor, then what is the steps to do that?
I would have to, I'd have to look around into that because I don't know which entity you can do it without a social. Even if you start a trust, they want to know the social of the grantor. They don't want to know the social of the trustees. They want to know the social of the grantor. And it's in a way they've made it very difficult to do anything without a social. So don't be afraid of it. Start operating in your right capacity. Start studying the law of agency. Start studying the treatise on trust. You can go to archive.org and download books all day long that teach you about the laws of agency.
Can you put that in the shot?
In a minute, I'm moving my truck
Take
because I got to back into the door.
Take your time, trailer.
Let's see. There's door 83. Jesse.
Yep.
Go to archive.org.
Okay,
and now in the search bar for archive.org, type in law of agency. And then share that link because it should, when they pull it up, it should give them the same search results. I could be wrong, but it should. Now, some of those books are free to download. Some of those books are not. You have to borrow them like a library. Then do another search, the treatise on trusts, and then share that link. And one of the books I downloaded on trust is filled with the term agent all through the book, or agent or agency. Okay, now my truck's no longer beeping. They did not put enough room in the parking lot of this freaking warehouse. Luna. Luna. I know. I moved the truck. Now you're all excited. Okay, there we go. Now, let's see. Now, archive.org. Law of agency search. Okay, he shared the link on the law of agency. So let's see. Tapping on that, it should come up with the same thing. Sure does. So you see the pictures on the books where they're white backgrounds. Most of those you can download. A lot of them are the same, okay? Like the one that's named the Talmudic Law of Agency or the Jewish Law of Agency, they're the identical books. But these are going to be your principles of law revolving around the office of being an agent. Okay, so these are things you should learn. How are you to do things when you're operating as an agent for an entity? Okay. And then you've got treatise on trust. Treatise on trust. Let's see. Nope, misspelled it. The law of trust, the principal treatise. So now, copy link, share, right there. And these are free books. You got a practical treatise on the law of trust. Some of them are back from the 1800s. Some of them might be more recent. But these are books most of them you can download. And these books are free. You don't have to spend no money. If you want to learn the principles, find old law books that are free and start studying them. Because the attorneys that wrote them back in the day, not all attorneys are bad. There's actually good attorneys out there. Okay, so when they write these books, they are based on principles of law. Yes, they're going to cite court cases at times, but it's still based on the principles. When it gets down to the bare minimums of what they're talking about in each section, they title what the section is. That's going to be the simplest basis of the principle. These are the things that we should be studying. Because why? Social Security is a trust account. Well, if it's a trust account, trust law applies. So what do? You study trust law so that way you know how it works. And if you operate as the agent, you need to know how that works. And somewhere in the middle of those two things, you are going to get an understanding of tax law, because tax law applies to trusts and all of that. But if you're the agent, you don't hold the liability. They do. This is why I don't like a lot of teachers out there. They teach opinions. They don't go to the government's documents and show you the facts. And then when they get in trouble, they wonder why. And then get mad at the government and say, oh, they're corrupt, this, that, and the other. Well, you didn't freaking follow the rules. You still in Houston, Jesse?
Yep, for about another week until probably a couple of days after the 6th. I've got some stuff I got to round up. Go get some birth certificates. I'm going to go try to get my great-grandfather's birth certificate.
I'll be coming right through where you're at then.
I'm going to try to get his death certificates. And then I'm going to give one to my uncle, to my father. We'll have the documents. So I'm trying to set it all up. But it's taking a lot of time, a lot of money.
Oh,
A lot
yeah.
of resources.
I'm 5 hours from you.
Trying to gather up documents. I was told today that everybody has their footprints documented. Yay.
Well, I'm 5 hours from you. I'm actually coming right through your neck of the woods.
You're going to be in Fort Worth, or where are you going to be?
No, I'm in Laredo right now.
No, I meant when you come through. You're going to be in
Oh,
Houston?
yeah. I'm coming through Houston. I'm going to Florida. I'm going to Kissimmee, Florida.
Yeah, Kissimmee, or whatever it's called. Well, how long are you going to be in Houston for?
I'll be passing through. I mean, I've got plenty of time.
Well, you
I mean,
got
I'm planning on being in Florida Sunday or Monday because I got a class I'm doing Monday. So I want to be parked. My appointment ain't till Monday at 11:30.
Be passing by me too.
Oh, I'm passing by you too.
Yeah, you got to go through Beaumont to get to Florida.
Got to go through where?
Beaumont.
Yep, sure do. I'll be going straight across I-10. And Jesse, you asked if I talked to Floyd. Why? Is he nearby you?
Yeah, he lives off 290 in Tidwell, and I live off of I-10 in Federal. So we're on the opposite
you're both
side.
right on opposite side of Houston.
Yeah, we're on the opposite sides of town of each other. He's about 30 minutes away.
Well, shoot. If y'all get y'all's butt up in the morning, I might get close by there and stop for the night. And then that way I can get up in the morning and have a cup of coffee with you.
All right, well, let me know what's going on and talk to Floyd. I mean, I know you got to come right by here. You have to go by Federal Road and I-10 to get where you're going. So
that's right. I'm gonna get on I-10 and I'll be on I-10 all the way to Florida.
Yeah, this is a long drive.
I'll be there Sunday night.
Long drive. I can't do all that driving. My poor back kills me.
I'm only 1,330 miles away. That's an easy 2-day drive.
So how many hours do you drive before you take a break? I mean, I know how many you're supposed to drive, but there used to be 2 sets of books. When my stepdad drove, he always had 2 sets of books.
Well, being I'm running, let's see, today is the 26th. Being I've got COVID exempt until the 31st. Normally, I just run as hard as I feel like running. I mean, one day I did 1,016 miles.
Whew, man.
A couple days later, I did 880 miles, and I didn't even know I did that many miles. I think I'm gonna stop and go to bed. I stop every few hours. I mean, I got a dog that I got to take for a walk, so I stop every so often. I don't sit in this truck for 5, 6, 7 hours. Forget that.
Were you on the CB the whole time, telling everybody the secrets and talking to them about law?
Man, I got a CB in here, and I don't hardly ever use it because the average truck driver out here today, they think CB stands for COVID banned, so they're afraid of it.
What?
CBs are not as prominent as they used to be.
Yeah, neither is shortwave radio.
Man, I've actually thought about putting a ham radio in this truck.
You might need one.
One day, I was just going to say, one day you might need that. We all might need that.
No kidding.
I remember my dad used to have one, and he used to make me listen to William Cooper, The Sign of the Times, or whatever it was called. I'd be like, Dad, when's it coming on? Let's listen to William Cooper. Let's go.
I woke up a state national yesterday and today. He was high level, one of those Anna Von Reitz state nationals. And what really got him to thinking was, I said, you remember during COVID how the government was censoring truth through TikTok, through Facebook, all these social media, they would censor the truth? He said, yeah. I said, let me ask you this. If Anna and David are telling the truth, why are they not being censored? And he said, man, I have never put it in that perspective.
Oh, I agree. It makes perfect sense when you think about it. Did you know that Joe Rogan did a podcast with Zuckerberg, and Zuckerberg talked about the FBI? He was basically just saying that the FBI was telling him what he needed to censor and what he wasn't supposed to censor.
Oh yeah. Well, guess who runs almost all the child pornography websites? The FBI. That was in the New York Post a few years ago.
Well, that would make sense why they're not going to prosecute. All right, they don't, because if that comes out, their involvement in it, then the FBI will go bye-bye.
Well, the FBI won't go bye-bye. Go look what's going on with the FBI with Trump. The FBI ain't going nowhere.
It needs to go bye-bye. They need to dissolve all those ABC agencies.
I agree. I was joking the other day. I told my wife, because I'm working on remember I told you got to do your private birth record, right?
Right.
So I told my wife to go to my grandma's and get see if she's got a baby picture of me. And she goes up there and gets pictures. She found a 1-year-old picture, but she's going through the files Grandma had. I said, damn, we're going to change her name to CIA. The government could take notes from her. I mean, she's got records on family members that you're like, how did she get that? I mean, she's got the deals where I had my registration ticket in 1992. I'm like, she's got copies of my DD-214. I mean, like, damn, Grandma, the CIA could talk to you. You better than they are.
I told somebody the other day that, just to be an asshole to the system, that I would go down and get my name changed to no contract. And then where I went, I had to pull out my ID. They wouldn't believe what my name was. And then when I give him my ID, it would say no contract on it. And then if I had to go in front of the judge, I would explain to him that it's not my fault that everybody around me doesn't know how to read plain English. It says right there, prima facie evidence, no contract.
That's actually great. I love that.
I was like, oh my goodness, they would never allow you to do that. But
no, they wouldn't.
It would be great. Or get a DBA called no contract. That's who you do business as.
Yeah, they would never let you do that. That is probably a true statement.
It would be fun if they did, though. Mm-hmm. I think you would probably want to do it in Latin or something. Some other language, some sly way of saying no contract in a business.
Let's see here. Latin to English. Let's see here.
Probably no contracte or something.
No contractus. Non-contractus.
Non-contractus.
Let's see here. Here you go, Jesse. Here's your name.
Where's the chat out here? Non-contractus.
Just put your first name in front of it, non-contractus. There you go.
Jesse, no contracts. You're going to jail. Can you not read English? English, mother bleeper. That's great.
Oh, look at here.
But Jesus,
Oh,
no contractus. Jesus, no contractus.
we're of the non-contractus family.
For non-citizens, huh?
Well, yeah, that's one that just got sent to me. Look at that. It says, unless you are a non-citizen who wants to work in the United States, you probably don't need an SSN. Generally, only non-citizens authorized to work in the United States by the Department of Homeland Security can get an SSN. SSNs are used to report a person's wages to the government and to determine a person's eligibility for Social Security benefits. So if you're not a U.S. citizen, do you need a social?
No. But then it also says that if you're not, you probably don't need to work. So that would imply to me that you're either going to be well off or you have yet to claim something that they're waiting for you to step up and claim. Because there's not too many people I know who don't need to go to work.
The information is definitely the new gold.
Let's touch on something else here for a second.
Okay.
We know that there are some people who do not have these footprint documents. Okay.
Yes.
So we're trying to find a reasonable, sensible workaround to this quagmire that some people find themselves in, so that we can still get her done. I have a document.
Yeah.
That supposedly is a workaround to that, and it requires nothing else but your two thumbprints and your signature and the seal from whoever that seal needs to be from.
You can create your own. You can technically. I've seen people do it. Create their own footprint document.
Well, that's what I was thinking too, right? And you could basically say on the other side, I could take a picture of my hospital, right? Because I went and looked. The hospital that I was born at was closed, but they still have a picture of it, right? And I think that's there for a reason. So I'm going to take that picture. I'm going to take I went and looked up the two doctors that were on there. One of the signatures was very sloppy. So I went and looked up the history of the hospital, and I found his name. So I can put those two on there. Now, on the other side, I'm not going to know the information from when I was a baby, but I could put my footprints today and put my height, weight, and those things. Because it's not about the footprints hit the land, as long as they hit.
Well, the template I'm working on, and it's actually the advice of someone else, because his stuff is effective. Hold on a second. Huh? What? It's a little bit damp at the walls. If you can turn on the air of the box, where it's right down, that way it can pass. I'll start loading you up right now. If not, you'll have to That's because it was running at 9 and 10 this morning. So let's do this.
Let's do something with that box.
It was running at -10 because I had a frozen load, and when I turned it off at lunchtime, I said, I wonder if it'll be dry or will it be have moisture in it. So, let's turn it up to 35. Hit enter. Set point changed. Let it run and it'll dry out. Which I don't understand why it's a problem. I'm freaking picking up bottled energy drinks. Unless it's powder. I don't know. If it's powder, that would be a problem. Now, back to the subject at hand. But no, he was telling me you create a template showing your identification at birth, aka if you've got a baby picture, and then you show your identification as of today on the same document with your present day measurements.
With your footprints on it, right?
No. Well, see, I've got my birth record, so I've already got that. So what you're creating is your private identification, you as the baby, and you today on the same document.
Right. I got you. It's basically tying the two things together. And then having a witness there to attest that that was you or who you say you are, and vice versa.
And then you get that signed and notarized, and then you go find you a doctor that will do it, and you get a doctor to give you a physical and a notice of life. And competence.
Easy. That's not difficult. Now, once you have that, let me ask you this: to file that on the record, the land record and the miscellaneous by itself, and then get a certified true copy and have that authenticated so that it will release a seal on it.
Yeah, you can put your family seal on it.
No, I'm not talking about your family seal. I'm asking because that has to be a true authenticated document, right? Is it going to require a seal because the footprints has a seal on it, and so does the other, the certificate of birth that has a seal on it. So does that play a role in it whatsoever? Because my understanding of it is that that document needs to be authenticated so it's not hearsay. And that works the same way any other document that you would have authenticated. It must be filed somewhere, and then you must get a true and correct copy of it, and then you must get their authority to authenticate it and say that the signatures on it are true and correct, or it cannot be considered as admissible under the rules of evidence. And we're dealing with probate, then we're dealing with federal rules of civil procedure. So it has to be authenticated on some level.
You're not catching what I said. Okay, you may not have heard me. Is this document not supposed to be your private family identification? Yes. Okay. Do you have your embosser with your family seal on it?
Yeah, I guess you could do that. That makes sense.
Yes. I
But
try
you
to
know,
tell there's so many of these people out there putting their red thumbprint on documents, right? I said a lot of us in this movement have outgrown that. We have a family seal, a private seal with an embosser.
right. Well, you know that in the documents that I posted of the House of Lord Whitenhop, that's not his seal where he puts his thumbprint. That's not his house seal. That is the seal from the Postmaster General.
Well, yeah.
So he doesn't use his own seal on there. The Postmaster General seals it.
Well, yeah, you can do that. That's true. But when you're doing a official business, which is what you would be doing, then you put your seal on it, right?
Well, I mean that's pretty much what the thumbprint is supposed to be representing, right? Same thing. So
no, we're long past that. No.
No, I agree. What you're saying, I agree with you. I'm just saying that they're using the thumbprint as a representation of the seal, but in all actuality, the signature itself is a seal.
Yeah, but you actually need to go get your design your own family seal and go get you an embosser.
No, I agree. You should, no doubt, and I plan on doing that.
Now, by the way, if you have trouble getting your embosser, let me know. I'll put you in touch with a guy in Minnesota that'll make it.
All right, awesome. And I'm going to get with you about those license plates here in the next couple of days too. I haven't forgotten.
Oh, let me tell you a story about that one. buddy of mine on TikTok. He's one of the state national people. And me and him he is not the normal state national person. He actually takes the time to read government documents. And I told him, I said, I'm impressed by that. At least you're reading. Most people don't. And me and him have discussions all the time. And he saw the video on my TikTok about the exempt plate that we print. He says, because he actually went and got a Z plate. And I commented and said, when you get your Z plate, let me know how long it lasts before you get a ticket. Well, talk about irony. So he orders the exempt plate from us. He picks it up yesterday in the mail, puts it on the car, makes it an hour, and he's in jail. He called me last night after he posted bond. He said, what do we do? And this is where John Eric, where I told you I woke up another state national, because John Eric is witnessing all of this. I told him what I did on the ticket, even sent him the phone call so he could hear it. Okay. And I said, he said, what do we do? We got arraignment tomorrow. I said, when you go into court, I said, you go in there and express the office of agency. So now he was able to record all of it. They let him take his phone in. I said, now don't try to make it public because they will frown upon that big time. I said, he goes in there and I listened to the recording, and I called him afterwards. I said, man, I could tell you was nervous as hell. And I said, and that was the problem. The judge knew he could just run right over you because you had no confidence. But he did. He went in there and said, I'm here to handle the matter for that estate. And and my name is Nation. And the judge said, well, if you're not Nashon Garrett, then I'm issuing an order for his arrest for failure to appear. And he said, but Your Honor, I told you I'm here to settle that matter for that estate. I'm the authorized representative / registered agent. And then the judge stood his ground. No, I'm issuing an order for his arrest. So he comes out of court, calls me. He said, what do? I said, go back inside. Tell him to appeal it. Tell the clerk you want to appeal the decision. Take it to trial. He goes back inside, and the cop has the warrant in his hand and pointing at the paper, looks at Nation. Is this you? and he's kind of stern voiced and everything. Is this you? He says, sir, I told you I'm the authorized representative, registered agent for that estate. I'm trying to settle this matter. And he's, yeah, and the judge and the cop is getting forceful, trying to, put fear in him. And then the cop leaves, comes back with the bond papers from the night before. Is this your signature? He said, I don't feel comfortable answering your questions. I've already answered that I'm the registered agent for that estate. And the cop gets frustrated and leaves, and he walks out of the courtroom. And he said, man, he said, I never thought it would play out like that, but the cop couldn't even arrest me. I said, you're right. They needed you to accept the name. I said, I can't promise you running these plates you won't have an issue. The question is, are you going to know what to do when you do?
I can
And
tell
he
you,
told,
I can tell you what you don't tell them, okay, so
what?
that you won't get beat up. Because I've tried it multiple ways. In some ways, I've gotten beat up, and in other ways, I've gotten to, I got arrested, but I didn't get beat up. Since I put my private plates on there, I haven't been messed with at all. Like, I was in Mejia. Mejia is a town with probably 1,500 people, maybe, probably more like 1,000. And the cops there, they'll pull anybody over because in little towns, that's how they have to generate revenue. So never speed through a little town, ever. And the cop got right up behind me and my buddy John, and we were at the light, and I looked in the mirror, and I was like, oh, man, we're going to get pulled over. And we took off at the light. He didn't put his light on, and I know the whole time he was looking at the plates because he was far enough away from us to be able to see it. And he just kept on going and let us go. And then a few times on the freeway, police have got behind me. They just go around me and they leave me alone. So I don't know if that's just because I'm very lucky, or they just don't. They see the private plates and they know that it's not worth messing with. Plus,
Yeah.
if they try to get me, okay, they're not going to be able to get me for double jeopardy. I've already beat the charge for what they would consider to be driving with no license, no insurance, and no registration. And I didn't get in trouble for 2 years after that, so they can't bring that case back up on me. So if they try that nonsense again and try to take me into their public venue, I'm going to get them on double jeopardy. Okay, because they're not going to be able to charge me with the same thing twice. And I don't have a driver's license. I rescinded the driver's license. Okay, after I rescinded all of that nonsense. So I'm trying to make sure that they don't have anything that leads back to me. And if they want to act like it's me, well, I have my DBA, and it's at a P.O. box, right? And it's in the newspaper doing business as. So, what are we talking about? I'm just going to try to curtail around that as much as I possibly can.
Yeah. I understand.
But
Let's see here.
I'm still in danger though, because I'm not
Man,
100%. I don't have my car. It's not registered to the trust. All right. It's
we're
in probate in Florida. I need to file
yeah.
for lost title.
Look, we're always in danger. Look, just because my dad, Jesse, you could call me privately. You got my number, and I can put you on the phone with my dad, and he could tell you the stories and everything he's went through. He's never been pulled over running that exempt plate in over 5 years. Now, I tell people, does that mean you won't have problems? No, you're in a different jurisdiction. Look, John Eric Roca, you know him. He's in Floyd's group. He's running a private plate where he put his family seal on it. He's in Texas. He's never had a problem. That doesn't mean you won't. The question is are you going to be able to handle yourself and settle the matter accordingly? And see, that's the problem. People have this mentality that if I do, now I'm not saying, Jesse, that you have this mentality, because I know you know this. Okay. But some people think if I do a certain thing, I will never get messed with. And that is the farthest thing from the truth. If you are going to live in fear and look for some magic thing that you will never get messed with, you might as well stay a slave. They don't mess with their slaves. They ask their slaves to do certain things so they can make money. But if you want to be free, you better be ready for the fight, because sometimes they're going to test you. There is no magic thing that says, I mean, is there a do not detain list? Yes, there is. Talked to a guy this morning that actually has experience with it. He's on it. My buddy EJ out in Oklahoma City, he's a former cop. He has seen it with his own eyes. So it does exist, but does that mean those people never get messed with? No. You're going to meet cops that are going to say, screw this punk, I'm going to write a ticket anyway. Because why? They got quotas. They might even take you to jail, but guess what? Can you handle your own affairs, or did you pay somebody to do a template without knowing what you're getting into? I mean, that is the bottom line right there. Appreciate it, Doug.
Tell them the story of the highway patrol sergeant.
What's up there? That's Shane. He can actually attest to the fact of what I told you about my dad running that plate, because he personally knows my dad. But I'll let you tell him the story about the highway patrol. Come on, Luna.
Well, I don't want to bore anybody, but I had a conversation with the first sergeant for the Tri-County here where I live in reference to private citizens and so forth, so on. Their training doesn't consist much in touch base with this. It's really up to the training officer who initially spends the time with that officer. But like he said the side of the road is no place to argue it. He said, if we're going to have an argument on the side of the road, I'm going to win every time. He seems to think that there is a statute here in the great state of North Carolina that states that gives him the permission that when he IDs you, you give an ID. You choose not to give an ID. He feels like he is just in his right to get you to identify yourself one way or the other. Will not argue with it whatsoever. If you choose to argue and not give, then he will take you to the magistrate. If you choose to argue with that magistrate, then that magistrate will pretty much go on a bond instead of an ROR. But like he said he wins every fight he has on the side of the road. He's had two guys, one of the Moors, I guess, am I pronouncing that right there?
Yeah,
Brian?
Moors, yeah.
All right, he said that the first guy was fresh out of prison, claimed to be a Moor, had about $15,000 worth of books in his front seat. He said he articulated what he felt was right and what the laws were. He said he articulated them to the point where he believed them. He said, I believe that what he was saying he believed, and I believed that he believed it was true. He said, however, he's like, it is not up for us to determine what those laws are. And therefore, he said, I asked him to get out of the car. I asked him to roll down the window for one, and he would not do it. I asked him to get out of the car so we could talk about it. Told him that I would put him in some nice, pretty bracelets, and we would take a ride in an air-conditioned vehicle back to the magistrate's office and let him walk it out with there. He didn't comply. Of course, there was a fight led on the side of the road and so on. He said the second guy, he said he had about 15, 16 pages of dealing with driving without a license, no registration, no insurance. He said that gentleman complied, took him back to the magistrate. The magistrate let him go ROR. He said, again, it's all on how you articulate it, and it's all on how you handle yourself on the side of the road. He's like, but one thing that everybody needs to remember, he's like, maybe when I retire, he said, maybe I'll dig into it. Maybe, hell, I'll try it. He said, because I seem to think what they're saying shows some merit. He's like, but he's like, unfortunately, my job is to enforce what I've been taught and what I've been told, whether I think it's wrong or right. He said, I think I told you that if I'm not mistaken, the point was this guy, he wrote him a ticket in his all caps name because he said back in grade school, that's how we were taught by Mr. Wilson, which is true. He's like, I've always wrote in all caps. He said, that's just how I write my tickets. That's how I write everything. He said, I wrote the ticket, and he said the guy tried to sue me with the UCC1 or whatever. He said, that's how he said it. He said, I'm not sure how that went. He said his name was copyrighted and trademarked. He said, but I kept telling him that if he wants to sue, he can sue all he wants to. But he said, charge the state. You talk to Roy Cooper. He's like, I'm not paying a dime. And when it went to court, of course, it was dismissed and so forth. As far as he wasn't, the lien that was put on his house and all that was taken back off. But I think the point of the story is they're not educated on this. They have no clue what we're talking about half the time, unless it's something that their training officer has been through. And the side of the road is not the place to argue it. But he did
That's
say,
right.
he said the one thing he will say is yes, that the memorandum about the sovereigns back in the 80s where they were told that they to give them hell. He said if I see an American national or a state national plate, he said I'm treating them the same way because that's what we're told to do. It's just it's a matter of that. Unfortunately, it's just not the place to argue it. He said every time he goes to court, they get out of the tickets, and he said it gets to the point where that guy's running a private plate. I just don't mess with him anymore. And he's like, there's no sense in it. And he's like, I know that eventually that I've pulled him over 3 times, and 3 times he's gotten out of it, and I've wasted a day in court. He's like, that to me will tell me to leave him alone. He's like, but if it's just all on how you handle yourself.
Yeah. My dad got in an accident one day. Minor bump up. He'd run a red light and run into a woman's car. Cops were called. And they swapped insurance. The police officer did a police report. He walks back to the back of my dad's vehicle, looks at the plate, looks at my dad, looks at the plate, looks at my dad, then goes to his car, digs in the database, finds a freaking North Carolina plate number dad hasn't used in years, just so he could put it on the ticket. Dad goes to court, shows the officer we've swapped insurance, got it took care of, they dismissed the case. Dad one day calls me and says, you ain't gonna believe what I did. I said, what'd you do, Dad? He said, I come up to this red light and I stopped and I looked left, I looked right and took off. And I said, okay. He said, there was a state trooper behind me. I said, did he pull you over? He said, nope. He sat there till the light turned green and went left. I laughed. I said, Dad come to a complete stop, checked the intersection that it was safe, and then took off. And and he has that exempt plate on his car, and the state trooper didn't even mess with him.
And I think that was kind of like the moral to the story too, with what the trooper was telling me. Like, it just really depends on what you're doing. He's like, it depends on what mood I'm in that day and what transpires to do it. But he also explained the DOT numbers. DOT numbers will not come back to anything unless they run them through the motor carrier side of that. And unfortunately, there's only a handful of officers that have that in their patrol cars. So running a DOT number will come back as a fictitious tag.
Well, I know it works for Wesley Keith Mullins. He's had state troopers come rushing up on him like they're going to pull him over. And then when they get up close enough to see that tag, they change their mind and go around him.
Yes, because the DOT number, if you run it through motor carrier, will tell you exactly where that number leads to, whether it's a company that leads to a trust, that leads to wherever that road leads. So I think it all kind of comes around. But the Highway Patrol and DMV, depending on what state you're in, are the only ones that actually can run that through the motor carrier.
I mean, there's truth to all this stuff. Wesley Keith Mullins, he does a private identity class and shows you exactly how he did his private identification. And he got a ticket in South Carolina for driving without a license. And he used his private identity to get out of that ticket. His private identity is similar to a driver's license. It has an expiration date, just like a driver's license in 10 years. And then he has to re-record it as a private identity and issue himself a new identification. And I mean, he's public about his stuff. It's all on his website.
So he did make some interesting comments to the whole golly, my mind's not right, but the
we knew that
the do not detain.
Yeah.
It said that when you run that through NC Leads or NCIC or through Leads, he said that it will tell you what it's as reference to, meaning like a do not detain for minor traffic infractions or administrative stuff up to a certain point. So they'll do it like a class 1 felony or class 1 misdemeanor. He said that if you do manage to get it on there, that get on that list, he said it will tell them what they can and can't do. He said, but it's always up to the officer whether he wants to push the envelope and if he wants to keep his job.
Yeah, so the do not detain list does exist.
Well, I think
All you
that
got to do on. Sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry. Well, I was just going to say that to be able to not be or to get on the do not detain list is get a diplomatic plate through the state, but you have to go through certain channels to get that, or be one of the alphabet agencies. You know, even if you are running around with your US DOT plates under the trust and the vehicle or the automobile is under the trust, you know, you're still going to be at discretion on the side of the road with somebody who's got a billy club, taser, handcuffs, and a gun. It can take you to jail, you know, and make your life miserable. Just,
yeah. Unfortunately, one guy in that day. Yep.
Yeah. That's why you don't hold court on the side of a road. You just say, yes, sir. Here's my, yep, I have insurance. Yep. No, I don't have this. No, I don't have a contract with the state. No. So, do you want to, so I'm going to write you a ticket. Okay, sir. Thank you. Glad you're doing your job trying to keep the highway safe. You know, just be nice, be courteous, and then take it to court.
I thought you were able to obtain the do not stop, do not detain using the guide of Copper Moonshine and the way he explained it.
Yeah, that is what the guy told me this morning. I asked him, I said, what process did you use? He said, I use Copper Moonshine still. The guy I talked to this morning, he's a pastor, like me. And I'll tell you, David Roach, you can look him up on Facebook. He's out of Indiana. He posts all kind of law stuff all the time on his Facebook. He's never done a secured party process. He has never done any of these processes. These processes are really what it boils down to is which path do you want to take? Okay? He doesn't have plates on his car. He doesn't have a driver's license, and he has no registration. He's been arrested 72 times, and he has beat the state 70 times. In his most recent story that he told me, he said he was down at the local bar, just sitting there at the bar and grill, having a drink and relaxing. And the local sheriffs that typically arrest him were in there too. He said, hey guys, come over and sit down. I'll buy you a drink. And they looked at him and they said, why are you so nice to us? We've arrested you. We've done all this stuff. And he looked at him and said, look, you're out there doing a job. We all are trying to figure out how this system actually works and what our place is in it. He said, why am I going to be mad at you because you are doing your job? And you know, today, they leave him alone. They don't mess with him at all. When they see his car, they don't even bother him. Why? Because he's always remained in honor.
No, ignorance of the law is no excuse.
That's right. It is no excuse. That's true. But the cops are hired to do a particular job. They go through a particular training. They don't know no different.
Pastor, everybody is hired to do a particular job with a particular thing. That does not mean you have the right to dereliction of duty. Okay, if you want to be free, then that requires diligence and vigilance. And if you're slacking in any of those regards, then your ass deserves to be in chains, because that's what it says in the documents way back in the early when Benjamin Franklin said it. Your ass
I
is going to go
don't,
into bondage.
I
Okay, because
don't
you don't know how to keep the republic.
I don't disagree with you. Okay, but the thing is, this is where I have a little more compassion, is because why? The average person has grew up in this system thinking a certain way, and they don't know no better. Most every single one of us started out new in this movement, asking the same questions that we've been asking for years. We didn't know any different until we started looking and we started making discoveries. So sometimes we need to have a little more compassion on our fellow man and realize, wait a minute, maybe they don't know. They really do believe they're doing right. Now's not the time to fight it. Let's wait till it goes to court. Because we were all that ignorant at one time.
That is correct. And most of us, even now, are ignorant and are trying to learn and apply everything that we learn. But everybody knows how to get into debt and open a checking account.
That's right.
And that is by design.
Now, Raymond, I will tell you, they do know how to do that. But you know, the one thing I can say today they don't always know how to do? They don't know how to balance a freaking checkbook.
Hey,
Nor does our government.
I've got a
Or the
certain
government.
family member that I will leave unnamed just because I love her. She's my family, and she's in her 30s, and she doesn't know how to balance a checkbook.
Balance? What's that?
I know, right? I was like,
You mean there's a
holy
positive
crap.
and a negative that goes with that?
I
right?
said, didn't you take math class?
What 2 plus 2 is 10.
But
Did you,
what part of Mason-Dixon you come from? But yeah. But look, to go back on that, how many people have gotten a job and you were half trained? I mean, honestly, it's so hard up to get you in there working that they show you just to get by, and then it's more on the job training than it is anything else. And I think the problem is you're only as good as your training your trainer. So I kind of think about that every time I run across somebody that just might not know it like I do, or might not know it like Pastor does. But I mean, ultimately, you just kind of hope and pray that eventually they smarten up and get with the program.
Yep. I mean, I freaking got that DOT ticket. Was I bothered by it? Yeah. Did I lose my composure? No. I said, he's just doing his job. And I waited for about 3 weeks, no, 4 weeks actually. And then I called the clerk, had my conversation with him, and we see the result. I mean, he's just out there doing his job, making sure the roads are safe. I'm not going to be mad at him for doing his job. He don't know who you are. I mean, that's a lot of times we get bothered by what government does or doesn't do, but they don't know who you are. They're just trying to make sure that there's order in this system that's in place. And yeah, now depending on the level of the person, like judges, most judges know this stuff, but they don't have a duty to enforce anything if you don't know it. I freaking figured that out my first traffic ticket for a missing mud flap when the judge met me at my truck, shook my hand, and I asked him just out of curiosity because I didn't make the presumption I knew everything then. I said, was I a little bit right on my arguments? And he laughed and he said, no, you were right 100%. You've done your homework. I said, that told me right there that even the judges are trapped in a system also, because why? I mean, in court, when I made my constitutional arguments, he disagreed. But when he met me in my truck, he told me I was 100% right. So even in court, those judges are trapped in a system and can't do certain things. I didn't know why at the time. You know what I'm saying? And that judge was actually pretty nice fella. I said, if I'm ever back in this area, you want to go to lunch? He said, absolutely. I'd sit down with you.
You know, was it 2 days ago? I was pulled over for doing 80 and a 65 by the county sheriff in Winkler County. And I didn't give him any hassle or anything because I don't have anything private, you know. I just gave him my driver's license. He asked for my insurance, but it was tied to Alabama into the vehicle. And he ran my tags and everything, came back, gave me a warning, and just told me to slow down.
Now, I will admit there are evil people at the top. I mean, you've got the elite that purposely set this stuff up. I mean, making everybody pledge their property, so to speak. And I'm not naive to that. But most of us that are not running with the elite, we're not Trump. Most of us out here just working day to day. Most of those people, they might know something, they might know nothing. So, love your neighbor. That's Jesus said, do what? Love your neighbor. Who's your neighbor? It's every person you run across. I mean, that's right there. He said is what? That's complete. It's love God and love your neighbor. That is the whole law. But what do? We tend to want to fight with them. You're corrupt. You're this. You're that. And all. And he's a man like you. All you're going to do is piss him off.
So I got a question.
Yes,
what
sir.
happened? This anybody can answer this. What happened to make you all decide to want to change and pursue private and/or sovereign?
My experience, this is just me. What got me into it was fighting a family court case. But in 10 years of study, I've run across most everybody in this movement is from a foreclosure because their home's getting stolen, tickets, family court, court proceedings. It's almost always that stuff. But each person, you're right, they do have their own story. But it typically falls within those few parameters.
For me, I just ran across information and I said, well, you know, I'm going to research that. But the more I read, the more I understand, the more I have a disdain for the way shit has been going and me not knowing any of it and just assuming this is how it is.
Yeah. Hey, when I first ran across Jones v. Timmer from 1993, and I was reading in that court case how if you are a 14th Amendment citizen, you do not have access to the Bill of Rights, and that there is this thing called a citizen of the several states. And I was reading the court case where it said that unequivocally, and it said it twice, that the 14th Amendment doesn't protect rights. And I said, hold up. That is not what I learned in school. What in the hell's going on here? And that started me on this path.
Yeah, mine, it said, for me, when it said the United States is a corporation, and then it says, you know, all things reside from D.C., I was like, what the hell is that? No, we're not in D.C., we are in the United States of America.
Yeah. Now, and that's why I'm glad I've learned the things I've learned in the last 6 or 8 months. It's just like me doing the FOIA request. Any records that I'm a U.S. citizen? Nope, we ain't got none. I mean, it's I'm learning how to change I'm willing to be teachable because we don't know all the law. It is a lifetime of study. It is a lifetime of growth. And if you get stuck on a certain process or a certain guru, you are no longer teachable. You have to be able to say, you know what, maybe what I thought 2 years ago was wrong, and maybe it's something else, but that path led you to this point. I mean, because I've done the secured party creditor process. I studied it for 3 years before I did it. I liked what I was learning.
I have a
But
question
now I
about
look
that,
back,
Pastor.
but now I look back on it and I realize there are certain little aspects that were not exactly accurate. Overall, it's good, but those few things I don't agree with anymore. What you got, Jesse?
Well, when you did your process, you took a birth certificate. You did it.
Yep.
There's acceptance on it, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Now, did you send in an original authenticated copy to the
No.
Treasury, or did you send in a copy of a copy?
No, I did not send the authenticated copy. No, I have
See,
that in my possession.
I think that also had something to do with not getting any funds or getting any of the royalties, because it's the authenticated birth certificate that allows for the full faith and credit. The other one is just a hearsay of a bond, right?
Now, I
And then
do agree that if you have a certificate of live birth and you send in that, it is double hearsay. The authentication doesn't make it not hearsay. It's just you're asking the system to treat it as if it's the record. That's all you're doing.
well,
You're authenticating the
you
offices.
also have to make it to where you, the man, it's in equity. Okay, you're doing
Yeah.
everything in private, so you have to
Yeah.
make that document equitable,
Mhm.
right? So you're going to have to come in as executor under equitable terms to be able to express that, to be able to utilize the birth certificate to fund the full faith and credit of the new trust that you just created. But
Yeah.
we didn't give them that security document, nor did we send an executive letter stating what the intent was for it, right? We just sent them a copy of it and then sent them a accepted for value birth certificate.
Well,
Right, so
yeah,
I
but
think,
this is
and then
where I agree.
and then we tried to hold on to the security instrument and lean it up.
Yeah. Well, this is where I agree on the executorship with a couple of people that have recently started talking to me. I mean, KW don't talk to nobody, you know, and we got to talking, and he said part of the problem is you got to be appointed as executor by the probate court. And to me, that makes sense. If the probate court is what started it, and that's where it's always at, you need to get the appointment before you claim it. Because remember, it still goes back to whose property is it? It's theirs. And if it's a trust, they need to appoint you to that position. Trying to do anything outside of that, you're stepping on their rights. And that's why I say that the secured party creditor only has a few things that I don't agree with anymore, like the security agreement. They will say it. You cannot do a security agreement, quote unquote, with yourself. Okay. In other words, they do recognize in some fashion that you, the man, and you, the trust, can be the same person. So you can't do the security agreement with yourself. So what's the work around that? Go get you an LLC and let the LLC be the trustee. Now you can do the security agreement that way. But then the UCC is supposed to be a public notice of a security interest. Well, how can you have a security interest in another person's property? Well, that goes back to anybody. Jesse, how can you get a security agreement in something I have unless I owe you a debt? So what do you do?
Contract that I can legally that legally binds you to me, that has created a debt obligation where either I failed to perform or you failed to perform.
Yeah, well, guess what? If you are the authorized representative, which is on your checks that you are, and that's a synonym for an agent, right? And slavery's illegal, send them a freaking letter saying, hey, since the principals failed to communicate at any point in time with the agent, and since it was never properly afforded me a way to do the proper process, and slavery is illegal according to the Northwest Ordinance, you owe me back pay since I was 18 of this much per year. And me personally, I like now, and then you tell them, say, look, for my continued performance, this is my salary. Now, Now, if you do the administrative process,
that's what they're trying to do with the W-4. That's kind of what they're trying to do with the W-4. But I want to back up a second and touch on something else, all right? Because you've already touched on this part a million times. Let's go back to the probate court part, okay? If we were going to become the executor, what would be a way that we would go about doing that? And what would be the proceedings look like? What would they be called, maybe? Or how would we set that up so we can go into the probate court and be elected as executor?
the only thing I've got on the top of my head right now is you asked for the appointment. Do I have all of KW's files gone through yet? No, I do not. And there's another person in this group that has a bunch of files. It's a lot.
Couldn't you go into probate court if you were going to hypothetically change the name, even though when you do the correct status correction, you don't have to change the name because it reflects the presumption still on the record. But you could be taken out of the CRIS system, is what I've been told, because your name no longer reflects that in their system. Couldn't you, during that time, go in there and try to be appointed executor of the estate?
Yeah, you could.
So you maybe just put that in your petition?
Yeah. I know. I only know of one person, and I stress that. I only know of one person that actually did do the process of some type. I don't know what he did, but he got a letter from the IRS that said, I'm sorry, that we're forgiving our condolences for the decedent estate.
That's funny. See, I don't want them to kill the trust. See, that's the thing. It's like my buddy.
Yeah, I know.
He sent me a tell, and he was worried. He said, Jesse, I filed an affidavit of life a few years back, and I've been put on the do not detain list. Okay, but they're just giving me basic benefits. And I was thinking to myself, maybe they killed his estate, but then he told me that he's getting checked, and I was like, well, then they didn't kill the estate. But he's having a hard time because you don't really have any identification. And the Social Security office, they won't talk to him. They won't give him the time of the day when he calls them. So I just told him it's time to start getting his documents together. He needs to get a trust, and he needs to start operating in trust. That way, no matter what, he'll be able to do business in public and have a transmitting utility.
Well, here's another thought process, because I've heard Eon's talked about this one, and to me it makes sense. And also, I heard a story. Trey Ben, she personally knew this guy, that he did a change of address with the Department of Education for the name. And he started receiving a $10 check every month from the Department of Education in the name. And I said, now, for me, to me that makes sense. If you're the registered agent, isn't all notices, processes, and demands supposed to come to you so you can handle them? But yet we have all these agencies.
If I was the registered agent, then yes, all of those things would come to me.
Yeah,
okay, but that doesn't make me the registered agent.
No, the registered agent is there by law. I've already shown you that.
Okay.
Whether you agree or not, it's right there in black and white.
That's not what I said. I'm not arguing whether if it's there or if it's not there. I'm arguing whether or not you think you have permission to use it, whether it's there or not. That's the argument. You're trying to divert what I'm saying.
All right, hold on.
The registered agent doesn't have permission to make decisions. The registered agent is just there for notices, processes, and demands. And what is the registered agent's duty? To forward it to the principal. Who is the principal? It's the trustees, aka the United States.
No, I'm not arguing any of that. Not what I'm saying.
Okay.
I agree with all of that stuff. If you are the registered agent and you've acknowledged that that's who you are and they've acknowledged who you are, then yes. But my question is do you have permission to be the registered agent? Or are you just presuming you are by default?
No,
I mean,
I'm not
it
But
makes
presuming.
sense.
aren't you
It makes
granted
sense
that,
by default.
Jesse? Aren't you granted that anyways because it's assigned to you?
Well,
That's right.
no, it's not assigned to you. It's not about you. You just think it's about you, and you're taking responsibility for it when it was never you to begin with. No, you're not the authorized agent unless you authorize yourself to be the agent. And if you do not, then you are
Incorrect.
committing. No, it's not. That's the secret, Pastor, is that you're trespassing. You're using something that you don't have permission to use.
I
Okay, and
just
you think you
read to
do.
you. Listen, I read
Okay,
to
hold on.
you out of
Hold on.
Corpus Juris Secundum and American jurisprudence what it said.
Jesse, if it's sent to you to be used by you, aren't you lawfully, like not registered, but lawfully legal to use it?
Yes, if you
sent that shit in an all capital letter name, which violates 18 section 1342.
You know it's against the law. We
Fictitious
know it's
names
all
and
fraud
addresses.
in varying degrees. I won't argue any of that. My point is that they created that thing, and you're presuming that, once again, it goes back to the name presumption, that because it's got authorized agent on there somewhere hidden from you out of plain sight to where it should be obvious if you were the authorized agent, it would be right there in front of your face instead of you having to squint your eyes to look for it. No, they're hiding it from you because you don't have permission to be the authorized agent until you've authorized yourself to do so.
Hold on.
Right. So if you don't do that, then what are you using the card?
You are the debtor's citizen. You're taking on, you're basically what Pastor's always talking about, trust de sanctor. Okay, I'm just taking it to the next level, which is where we think that because it's our name, which has been captured, it's not our trademark. They got the copyright on it. They've got the highest priority lien on it with a perfected title. So you're coming in trying to act like you got any claim to their shit. Where's your proof? All right, it's all about burden of proof in this system. So show me the proof. Show me where you have just because you have this paperwork does not mean that you have authorization to use it. It told you beforehand, you said before, Pastor, that they used to tell you to not give that information out. Why? Because it's not yours to give out. But all of a sudden, because you start giving it out, that automatically makes you the authorized agent.
No, that is not what I'm saying. If you will let me speak, I'm going to read to you from their document. Corpus Juris Secundum, okay? No, this is actually 3 Amjur 2D section 15 under the law of agency. It says, while the creation of an agency relationship, as far as the principal and agent are concerned, arises from their consent, usually as the result of a contract. It is not essential that an actual contract must exist. The agency and the assent of the parties thereto may either be expressed or implied. Also, an agency may be informally created. An express agency is an actual agency created as the result of an oral or written agreement of the parties, and an applied agency is also an actual agency, the existence of which as a fact is proved by deductions or inferences from other facts and circumstances of the particular case. In this, and what I'm getting at is in our case, it's an implied position. And what did it say? You do a deduction and inferences on the facts.
Listen to me. You're correct, but that also applies on the other side of the equation because it's all implied. It's implied that you're a United States citizen. So if you don't know what a United States citizen is, then yes, you are the authorized agent by default because you're playing the role that they've created for you to play. Okay, you decide on what agency you're going to be playing. Okay, and if you don't want to play their agency, you don't have to play their agency, and you don't have to denounce something that you never were when you realize who you really are. Just like you don't have to I didn't take an
It's
oath, so there's
already,
no reason for me to denounce United States citizenship.
yeah.
I never really was the authorized agent because I never authorized myself to be the agent. It's all fraud from the very onset.
And
From the
in
very
an
beginning.
implied, you didn't hear what it said about an implied agency. You don't have to express it if it's implied. In our case, it's implied. Now, the problem is the agent never holds liability, but you're not operating as the agent. You're out there making decisions for the trust, and you're not the trustee. That's where trustee de Santort comes in at. It's not the fact that you're the agent. The fact that you're the agent is because it's implied, and it is by deductions and inferences of the facts. One of the deductions and inferences is that the check says authorized representative. One of the other facts is they own the freaking estate. That's just two. So guess what? If you are the authorized agent and your sole duty is to forward all demands, all processes, and all notices to the principal, that is your sole fiduciary duty, whether it is implied or expressed. Then why are we not doing that? No, we're out there saying, oh, it's fraud, it's this, it's that, when it's their obligation, according to the March 9th, 1933 Congressional Record and Proclamation 2039. They sit here and told you all this, and you're sitting here saying, well, I'm not the agent because I never accepted it. You accepted it by implication. You don't have to fill out a paper saying I'm the agent if it's implied.
Pastor. You were born into it by default.
That's what I'm saying.
That's right. So that means that you never had a choice, which means that the contract is unconscionable. So all of it's fraud right from the very beginning, ab initio.
No, what you can't hold you to, what they can't hold you to, what they can't hold you to is the liability. But see, the people volunteer to be liable because why? They don't realize their position. It's not fraud because they publish everything.
It's fraud.
Now, I've told
its
you
intent
before.
was to deceive and to manipulate and to contrive and to extort and to extract, okay, and any other adjective that I can't add on there because I don't know, okay, but there's a whole bunch more. That was the sole purpose of why they created this system, was to extract every little bit of energy and resource out of it they could because they're succubuses. Okay, so if you're trying to tell me that there was good faith and clean hands when they created it, I'm going to have to tell you you're full of shite. All right.
Well, here's where I tell you, if you would not use the word fraud, but you use constructive fraud, I will agree with you.
Fraud, okay. In order to have fraud, there must be a construct. It's the same thing. Fraud is
No,
fraud.
it's not. No, it's not.
Fraud. It is. It's fraud. It still has the word fraud.
No, constructive fraud. American jurisprudence. Constructive fraud is a fraud that arises by the operation of law from conduct which, if sanctioned by law, would secure an unconscionable advantage irrespective of the actual intent to defraud. You don't need an intent to defraud under constructive fraud. When you say it's fraud, you're claiming there's an intent to commit fraud. Under constructive fraud, there doesn't need to be an intent. It's built
Can I jump in here real
into the
quick?
contract.
Can I jump in here real
Yeah.
quick?
Yes.
To say I talked to Jesse the other night, but I want to go to talk about this authorized representative deal you guys are talking about. If you watched the second part of Ann's video, did anyone watch that today?
No, I haven't watched it today. They just
Okay.
published it, and I've been busy.
Okay, so I watched this video. It's an hour long, and she claims that you can't use the UCC 3402 authorized representative until you fill out a Form 56 from the IRS.
I don't agree with that.
Right, but it's interesting if you look at the form because you're talking about the court appointing you executor, and there's the authority, Section A authority, a court appointment of testate estate, court
Now,
appointment. I mean, there's
if
all
you
these things
get
on here.
if you get the court to appoint you as executor, then you can do the 56 because now you have the order. But if you're the registered agent, if you really want to document that you're the registered agent, there's only one thing you've got to do. Do the acceptance of the office with the Secretary of State. Who
So,
did
like,
Brian Parker, when Brian Parker, and I shared his resignation of registered agent in this group earlier, when he did his resignation of registered agent, where did he send it to? He sent it to 5 different places, but I can only remember 2 of them. He sent it to Minnesota, Secretary of State, and he sent it to the Florida Secretary of State, and he sent it to 3 others. And his was not a form, nothing. He wrote it himself and laid out the reasons why he resigned as registered agent. He already made the discovery himself that he was operating in that position, and he said, I don't want to operate in that position no more. And that was before, and I didn't start talking about this until the last few months, because why? I didn't start talking about that stuff when Brian Parker told me what he did. I thought it was cool. I thought it was nice. I didn't have the understanding I have today. I said, okay, I put that in the back of my little backpack, and I'll bring it up later if the time needs it. I watched KW's video, and he read his court ruling where the judge stated it is a state agency, and you are the agent. And guess what? That right there was in 2013.
Agent to the state or agent to the name?
Agent to the entity.
Which is the person.
Which is the trust.
Yeah, which is the person.
Yes.
So you could integrate this into a name change, or do you or do it with the Secretary of State / Department of State? I mean, that you could do either or both.
You can identify yourself how you want, and identify the person, and that you are the registered agent. Now you've accepted the office. You don't accept it through the Form 56 until you do it with the Secretary of State. That is in the state laws.
Pastor, what was that law you were quoting, the March 1933 20-39?
Oh, Proclamation 2039 was signed March 6, 1933. That was a proclamation done by President Roosevelt. And then I cited the congressional record of March 9th, 1933.
So can we go back to probate? So you're saying that if we do a will, deposit a will in probate, and in our will we put who we want to be as the executive, then that wouldn't be sufficient?
No. Just because you claim to be something, do you have them acknowledging it?
My will is my wishes. So if I wish to appoint someone,
yeah, but that estate isn't owned by you. If I've got property and you want to administer it, do you not have to come to me to get the appointment?
Okay, so once you do this, whether you send it to Secretary of State, Form 56, or whatever your process is, doesn't someone have to check a box somewhere on a computer that says you're authorized now? So who's the agency, or who's the three-letter?
Who regulates all corporate fictions? The Secretary of State. Why do you think when Brian Parker resigned, all those bills of attainders that was on his driving record disappeared?
So, Pastor, when he resigned, who filled the office?
Goes by default, the Secretary of State. And that is actually provable in statute. Okay. Let's see here. I'll share it from North Carolina. Give me a second.
So check this out. The reason why people are doing this fiduciary 56 is because on this document you can revoke your signature from all credit card companies, bank accounts, any other entities that you signed with, and then if you scroll down towards the bottom a little more, you can put in the information of any of the court cases where you've signed your signature over to them. You know, if you're the authorized representative of the signature now and it's recognized, I guess through the Secretary of State, that's fine. I'll send it there. It doesn't matter. I don't really care as long as it's correct. Then when they go to see, you know, they check on your signature because that's really what they, when you start expressing a trust and you're using the byline, they're going to go find out whether or not there's an authorized agent on that signature. Okay, and if there's not,
I get what you're saying, but here's where the operation of things fall into place. What you're doing is you're getting the cart before the horse. You're saying, fill out the Form 56 and assume the office when you've never notified the Secretary of State. You've got to notify the Secretary of State first.
I just said I was going to notify the Secretary of State. Okay, that preceded the Form 56.
Yeah.
You didn't hear me say
Now, when you get the confirmation from them, now you've got a document to attach to your Form 56 for the IRS to recognize you. It's doing things in order.
That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. So we're not going to send the 56 to the IRS. We're going to send them what you sent me earlier, basically, in a nutshell. Something similar to that, anyways. Did you post that in the chat?
Conversations, and neither one of you read the instructions for the Form 56 and who it would be submitted to.
Does it say on the form who to send it to? I'm pretty sure it does now that you said that. Let me look and see.
So wouldn't by resigning as a registered agent forfeit any security interest you would have in the person?
That's my opinion, because if the operation of law is that you're the agent and your duty is to do blah, 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 and the government has a duty according to HJR 192, yes, it was repealed, but it was reenacted in, I think, 70-10. Don't quote me on that. I have to go look it up. I can't remember. If it's their obligation and it's your duty to send them their obligations that's tied to the trust, if you resign as registered agent, it's no longer, you are waiving that.
And if you waive that, then you're going to waive all credentials that are attached to that.
That's the way I see it.
You just get somebody to do that for you. That's what an accountant is.
So
yeah, well, but here's the problem though. If you're no longer the registered agent, you don't know, and you tell the Secretary of State that you are resigning, okay? And you say, and the Secretary of State has to appoint a new one, and what Brian Parker did is you have 30 days to appoint a new registered agent, okay? Do you think they're going to tell you who the new registered agent is? No, they don't have to tell you.
So wouldn't it be a better strategy to acknowledge it as a registered agent and then relocate yourself outside of the jurisdiction as the address, the permanent address of the registered agent?
No, it doesn't matter where you're at. The agent never has liability anyway. If the agent is doing their duty, there is no liability. It doesn't matter where you're addressed. That's the law of agency. The only time the agent has liability is when the agent isn't doing their job.
So when you sign the contracts on your mortgage and your auto loan and there's only one signature on there, all that should be reported back to your trustees,
That's right.
and your
What's the
trustees being
principle?
the ones listed in the Social Security Administration.
That's right. What's the principle of the W-4 process? You're reporting it to the trustee.
So that's right, to audit the accounts to make sure all the accounting is done properly.
Now, so for me, now I asked Smoking Baby this question a long time ago, and I'll repeat it again. I said the only thing about the W-4 process that didn't make sense to me is this. And I told him this, and I'll tell you word for word what I said. I said, my dad is self-employed. He does installation work. He does it for the box stores. At that time, he did. Okay? And I said, at the end of the year, Home Depot sends him a 1099. What does that 1099 represent? Home Depot is acknowledging they gave this much credit to his business. And I said, why are we not using the 1099 instead of the W-4? Put the social on the 1099, put their EIN on the 1099, that you issued this much credit to that corporation. And I never got an adequate answer. But I've always, in the back of my mind, kept that there. Because to me, if it's not the W-4, then it has to be the 1099. And if you're the agent, you have to report so they know.
Would that be the same as taking a consumer report and sending it to the trustees and say, hey, audit all this. I believe the account's been dealing in fraud.
Yeah, we look at the national debt, $30 trillion. The government could stop spending. It wouldn't go away. Why? Because we're not doing our fiduciary duty so they can balance the books.
So a simple fix would be get your consumer report and then send it to the trustees.
Possibly. I do think LexisNexis is the top of the pyramid when it comes to the credit reporting agencies.
Yeah, I mean, just in general, I mean, if we're to report everything and inaccuracies and everything, the consumer reporting agencies, which there's a lot of them, there's a whole pamphlet full that I have sitting at my mom's house. I think I'm going to just send the whole pamphlet to the trustees and say, hey, we need to do accounting on all this.
Yeah, but you still need to write a letter to each of the accounts and make an attempt to get their EIN. You've got to produce the accounting.
On the consumer report, all that's supposed to be included.
I don't know. I've never seen it. I've ordered mine. I'm waiting for it to come in.
Mine's here and it's available. It's sitting at my mom's house. It's just I'm not there to verify the information.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the LexisNexis? It doesn't have the EINs on it because I've got mine in all three of my former names.
And it's got it. I don't think it's going to have all the accounting either. And that's where on the W-4 webinar that Smoking Baby did, and I've got it in my group. It's in Floyd's group. It's everywhere. There are certain things about that webinar that he explains that is absolutely right. And that these things are what you've got to do. You've got to write letters and ask for and produce the accounting. Just tell them, say, hey, this person had a credit card that had this much balance a month. That comes to a total of blah, blah, blah for this many months. Do you agree? You have 15 days to respond. And if they might come back and say, yeah, that's fine. And yeah, that's what you had and blah, blah, blah. Now you've produced a record. Now that record is then used to go with the other stuff. Okay, y'all are done loading my trailer. Bring me my bills. Turn. When I'm trying to get on the road. Because I got to be in Florida before 1 o'clock.
How far you got left to drive?
I'm getting loaded. I'm in Laredo, Texas.
Where in Florida are you going?
Kissimmee. Got
That's a good little
1,330 miles. I mean, it's no big deal.
No, that's not a big deal. I drive 1,100 every time I go home.
So I have a question.
What?
You retire as an authorized agent. Does that mean that you're moving into the beneficiary position?
I don't necessarily assume that it does.
Okay, so if we were going to
What
move
I
into the let me finish my question. Let me finish my question. If we were going to move into the beneficiary position, would we have to do it through the authorized agent? Okay, or would we have to retire the authorized agent, have somebody in place as our trustee over our living trust that could take care of those affairs for us? Like, give us
Well,
an
yeah, you
idea of how
could.
that might work.
Hey, well, you could. I actually had, you know the website. Oh crap, what's the name of it? Begins with an F. What's the name of that freaking law website? Freedom School. You know Freedom School, don't you?
I believe so.
I was talking to James Ebert one day, and we was talking about the Social Security and the creation of the trust, the secured party process. And I asked, he told me, he said, oh yeah, he said, I wrote the Social Security Administration, and I asked them, can I privatize this number? And they wrote him back and said, yes, you can. Put it in the freaking trust. Let the trust manage it. Now there's a Form
That's what I was thinking
8832.
if you were going to claim the estate and you were going to step into the beneficiary role.
Well, that doesn't necessarily mean you're stepping into that role. The question is what will they say your role is from then on out? That's why I say don't be afraid to write them letters and ask questions.
Well, I know that once you do the paperwork and you file it and you do it correctly, they're going to cut you a check, okay? And then you're pretty much not going to be talking on here no more. So
yes, there are people that have reached that point that have non-disclosures that you will not see them on social media, and they're living their life if they keep up with that. Because there are some people out there that didn't, and they were found in a freezer.
Well, I'm gonna have people in place to take care of those things for me, because I'm gonna go be doing whatever I want to do. That's the whole purpose of this: is setting it up so that you don't have to do anything, and everything else can be taken care of itself. Right?
Well, for me,
that's what
I look at it different. For me, I look at it different, Jesse. The love of money is the root of all evil. And
I don't care about the money. I care about everything else that I'm going to get to do and not have to worry about going and making money. The love of all evil is your ass having to go work for something that God has already provided for you in abundance, and they've tricked your mind into thinking that there's a lack of something when there's not.
No, that's where I disagree with you, and here's why. Doesn't God say you shall work by the sweat of your brow?
No, Caesar says that, okay?
No, it's in the Bible.
Whoever translated that from Arabic or Greek and Hebrew decided to change that word to work to convince you so that you'd get up and go do something for them. All right, so if you think otherwise, you're silly.
Okay.
I mean, what I mean by work is not that you don't have to get up and you got to move and you have to exert energy and that you have to do something productive. I mean work in the construct of what it's been framed for us today. Okay? This is not what it was supposed to be or God ever intended it for it to turn out. So, I've ex-nayed that out of my thought and try to figure out what it would look like in a different perspective, what work is supposed to be. And it's every man working for the betterment of his other man, and that we have a society where everybody's building each other up. We're not at competition and war with each other and then at war with ourselves because we're worried about our bills and we're worried about paying our electric bills and all these other things that the world is throwing at you. Is that part of having to go to work to do that is nonsense. That's not working for you. You're working to survive. It's dumb.
That I don't disagree with you on, but here's why I say why I understand why the system is the way it is. Because here's the problem. If you look at the masses are heathens. If they had access to those in those accounts, they would go buy mansions and cars and never work for the betterment of this country and its people, and they would watch the country burn.
They already did that. That's why they banned the Federal Reserve routing numbers from all banks.
That's right. So
it must have
doing
been like
this,
4 years ago or better
yeah,
that people were using Amazon accounts and shit and buying product and not discharging debt. They were buying shit with it, using their Social Security card and the Federal Reserve banking that's written on the back of the social.
yeah. That's why I say this information has a certain level of responsibility. Because why? And in a roundabout way, Jesse, you know, if your goal is to get those accounts so you don't have to work, well, that goes against what God said. You can argue all day long that man translated it. So what? What does the original language and the intent of it mean? God said we are to work because why? We don't have we never look when we were kids growing up and mom and dad gave us everything, we didn't appreciate it. When we got out there and started working for what we had a sense of appreciation.
Can I just chime in? I know work, because I've looked up a bit. It goes back to the German word Werk, and I don't know if we're really supposed to be working. We're supposed to be like chasing a passion and abundance and putting together our own dreams instead of building someone else's dreams. I'm not this, or you could be self-employed, but I don't know about the word work. Maybe we're using the wrong word.
I don't get into all of that right there sometimes because, and here's why I think we complicate the language doing that, because the language is just the language we use here. If we were in China, we would use Chinese. If we were in Jerusalem, we would use Hebrew. I think we get too far. They do have meanings, but every culture has their own translated word that means work.
Oh yeah, I'm not talking vernacular sense here. In the vernacular, we know what each other's talking about here.
Yes, that's right.
By the way, what verse are you referring to? Genesis 3:19?
Let me go look.
All I know is I don't plan on working forever, and if I can figure out a way to not have to go back to work, then if you were to hate on me for that, then I don't know what to tell you.
Well, for me, I look at it like this. I would say I don't mind working. I take pride in what I do. If I could change careers and get into the law and help people, okay, then I would. Okay, but does that mean I would not work for what I want? Yes, it's 3:19. It doesn't use the word work, but that's what it means. In the sweat of thy face shall thou eat bread till thou return unto the ground. Well, how are you going to do it unless you're out there tilling the ground, which is work?
Yeah, but what's the rest of the context? What's the rest of the statement?
Too many talking.
Look at the work that goes into figuring out the system. That's worth it in itself.
Probably laboring.
Yeah, laboring. What is labor? It's work.
Yeah, but you're supposed to labor for yourself, not for other men.
I disagree with that, because what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to go look at the example in the New Testament where the Good Samaritan labored and paid for that other man to get well. We should be doing things for the betterment of our people. And the problem is today, most people don't care about their neighbors anymore.
You're supposed to care about your neighbor, but the whole process or the whole point of saying that you should work to better your own stuff. The whole thing with the master giving the alms or something, and they were supposed to go out and double it and triple it and everything like that, and some people hoarded it. So he talks about you're supposed to tend to your family. You're supposed to tend to
your family first. That's correct.
Yeah,
But if you
family first.
remember when he gave in the Old Testament, when he talked about the fields, he said, "Leave the corn on the corners of the field alone. That is for the poor."
For the poor.
Do they do that? So you labored for your family, but you are to leave some for the poor. That's what
Correct.
we mean by you're supposed to.
That doesn't mean
for the betterment of the people.
That doesn't mean to work for the betterment of a freaking conglomerate CEO that's taking. He's not poor. It's the poor that we should be looking to.
I'm not saying that. That's not what I'm saying.
No, I know what you're saying. I'm just saying there is a difference between like what the Bible says and what it means, and we need to work for yourself and your family, but you also need to look out for those that are less fortunate than you. And you can't relate the two about working for a big CEO corporation to working by the sweat of your brow.
I didn't ever say working for a corporation, relating it to the sweat of your brow, did I? No, I did not. How you decide to work is your choice. But the problem is, there's a lot of people out there that are lazy, and if they had access to those accounts and they had all that money, they wouldn't go out there and create jobs. They wouldn't go out there and work. They would sit on their ass and watch the country burn.
Correct.
No, sit on their ass and fuel the rest of us who are doing shit.
I mean, I don't have a problem with the big corporations in and of themselves. The only problem I have is that the satanic worshipers have taken over and they're poisoning the people. Okay, that I have a problem with. But
the big corporations are the run by the few. It's like 5% of this world runs everything.
That I'm not disagreement in that, but the big corporations in and of themselves are not bad. Look at the examples in the Bible. Yeah, they didn't necessarily have a corporation, but look at Abraham. He was wealthy. He had many employees or servants. They were employees.
I think what Iona, if I wasn't mistaken, was quoting earlier, though, was Matthew 25, where it was about giving the coins to the servants and they had to multiply it.
Yeah, that right there is another principle you're to do. If you are faithful in little, you will be given much.
Look, people could live in harmony with each other and the nature and the earth and saw their brothers and sisters as family, then like none of this would really matter, right? We wouldn't have to outsource everything to all these other things to fulfill an empty hole that everybody has because everyone's in slavery. At the end of the day, it's a value system.
Everybody's is not necessarily per se in slavery. It's voluntary servitude. It's not slavery. The people volunteer. If you go study the employer-employee relations or the laws, you will find that they call it master-servant relations. Why? See, indentured servitude has never been done away with. The only difference is that the indentured servitude is when you go work for a company, they have to give you a paycheck. Back in the day, the indentured servitude was, we paid your debt up front, now you have to work it off. Okay? See, we've lost a lot of context in the dumbing down of America to know how these principles apply today.
I just can't get my head around. Like, I know the N word also means lazy when you look it up, but the fact that, like, to believe that people are basically lazy, I don't know. I have to be careful of that, because the corporations use that when they take all our jobs and give them to foreigners, and they say, "Oh, we wouldn't want to do those kind of jobs."
Yeah,
But
I
why
don't
wouldn't
think
we?
people are lazy. I don't think that people are lazy at all.
Why
I
wouldn't we
just
want to do those jobs? They grab those jobs. They even use the term here in Australia. Well, the Chinese
John,
grab this job,
John,
grab that job. But we'll
John,
do those jobs. Yeah, go ahead.
John, you're missing the point.
Right,
You
I
look
probably
at
am.
you look at most of the youth today. They're lazy. They think they're entitled. Yeah, they go to McDonald's and flip a burger, and they think that's all there is in life, and you must pay me $15+ an hour. They are entitled.
Yeah,
Entitlement is a
I agree
form
with
of
you there. Different
laziness.
lazy though. That's a little bit different than lazy. That's a different
When
issue.
I
But
got
anyway,
out of school, did I work a job? Yes. Was I lazy when it come to learning how this system worked? Yes. All I cared about was chasing women. Does it mean I was lazy and I didn't work? No.
no.
It means I was lazy and sleeping on my rights. There are different forms of laziness.
Right. Yep. Yep.
And Pastor, have you sent your letter to the Secretary of State or whoever for the registered agent?
No, because I don't see the need to. If it's implied, I already know who I am.
Just on that last point, one form is called slack.
Is the same thing as assuming.
I'm just telling Jesse, if you think you have to do it, then do it this way. Do it according to the law.
I'm just asking. I mean, I understand that if you don't consent or if you don't fight back, then it's consent by default. If they assume and presume something, and if you don't fight it, then they automatically assume whatever.
Damned if you do and damned if you don't. You just need to figure out how to work, what the workaround
Yes,
is.
but my point is, if they say you're a U.S. citizen, you don't refute that. Is it by default you're a U.S. citizen?
No. I did a FOIA request and it can prove I'm not. It's not by default. You presume you were.
No, I'm saying if you do not refute that. Doing a FOIA request means you are refuting it because you're questioning it. If you
No,
do
what
not
I'm doing is
refute
asking
it,
them to produce the evidence,
means
and
by
they did.
default. Yes, but if you do not refute it, if they say, hey, you're a U.S. citizen, you don't say nothing back, you don't file nothing, then by default, you will be declared a U.S. citizen.
Is it per contract? I think could it be per contract and that's it? So anything that you sign per contract, if you click that box, then you are. But other than that, you are not. That's my question.
What?
Per contract. If you
When you click that box, that I had that conversation with my parents the other day. Is when you've clicked that box, U.S. citizen, that's given that ain't a presumption anymore. You've clicked that box. So to correct that, you're going to have to go back and inform them that you've changed your status on that.
No, I
per
disagree.
contract,
Now,
contract,
D,
right? Per
D,
contract.
Hold on, Iona. D, here's why I disagree with you. When you fill out that government document, what name and number are you putting on it?
The one given on the Social Security card.
That is the identification of the trust. That trust is not you. It, under the 14th Amendment, is a U.S. citizen. Because why? All corporations, all businesses, and all trusts under the 14th Amendment are legal persons and have equal protection under the law.
But here's the thing. People are concerned about their taxes. So that U.S. trust has to pay taxes. And the issue is, unless you make sure that there's no presumptions about you not being a U.S. citizen, you are expected to pay taxes. That's why people are concerned, I think. Or they don't want to get pulled over and get going to jail for. What?
If you think, and I'm going to tell you this as nice as I can, because everybody tends to think this way, that if I do some magic process, I'm never going to get bothered, you're sadly mistaken.
No, I don't think that. I don't think anything, to be honest, because I don't know how this world works. I'm trying to figure it out. You understand? That's why I keep asking questions, because I really want to logically deduce things. Yeah.
But what you just started to say, until I purposely cut you off, you said...
No, I'm saying this is what people are saying. I'm not saying me. I don't pay taxes. I'm saying this is what people are concerned about.
And I'll tell them the same. I will tell that you said that we'll never get pulled over by the cops or never get this. If you think those people
I don't get
will
pulled
never
over.
bother
I don't have
you...
these problems. I'm just interested.
Yeah. See, the thing is, my dad has never been pulled over in over 5 years, and he's running a private plate.
Pastor.
My buddy, Nashawn, got pulled over and arrested. What?
The thing they're getting at is everybody knows how to use a debit card.
Yeah.
Everybody knows how to use a debit card.
Yes.
Nobody knows the other shit that we're talking about right now. Nobody has a fucking idea. They're trying to understand. They don't know. Everybody who teaches them or tells them something is either right in some aspects, but in other aspects, totally wrong.
I don't disagree
They do
with
not
that.
know, and everybody is asking questions because they don't fucking know, and they want to break the chains that are holding us down as a populace.
The only thing that is going to break the chains is if you will read.
Right.
Everything I tell
But you gotta know how to lead first.
Well, no.
Look, you have to.
Go ahead.
It's a societal understanding, and it's a shift in all of us trying to break free of the bullshit.
Yeah. And how are you going to ever do that if you don't pick up their books, their court cases, their rules, and start reading?
I am currently reading their shit.
Yeah, I know you are, Raymond, but you know how many people in these groups won't do that? They post
I know. They want to
everybody
just
and
give
their
them the fucking go-to.
brothers. Yeah, they post everybody and their brother's magical template or document without understanding the why behind it.
Or those that copy the template and don't know the why.
That's right, that too.
Look, for what we need to do is make it a debit card for everybody so they can understand, comprehend, and apply it.
There is no debit card for everybody. Everybody's on their own path.
How many people use debit card?
Well, I was taking it as an analogy.
Yes, I know.
Okay.
How many people use a debit card?
Most everybody does. I can't say everybody because I don't have all the knowledge.
No, it's most of everybody. But why does the most 90% of population use a debit card?
Because the bank said, here, use this.
Right, with instructions.
Well, they didn't need instructions to push a button.
Okay, so if
they
we're
said,
trying
go
to
to
awake
the
the
ATM
masses,
and put your pin in.
if we're awakening the masses, then let them hit a button.
Yeah, but guess what I just did earlier? I said, look, go to archive.org. Go look up the
Yes,
law
you,
of
and yes, I was
agency.
here when you said
Go
it.
read
Yes,
the books. Go read
yes,
the treatise on trust. I shared the links for both. Go
right.
read the
And
books. Because
people
everything
in
I'm
mass are lazy.
teaching, yes, they're lazy. That's my point.
Yes,
Everything
yes,
I'm
that is the point.
teaching,
Stop. That is the point. Why do you think the United States Corp has such a hold on everybody in the United States?
yeah, all I'm teaching is what I'm learning from reading their stuff.
Right, but we have to relay that message to everybody who is too fucking lazy to go and do the research.
Now, Raymond,
It's not that people are lazy a lot of times to do the research. It's just like when I asked Pastor what did he reference on the proclamation, it's knowing where to start.
There is no where to start. You start where you're comfortable at. Like, look, go back. You're a Christian. Go back. What does a lot of people say when you're when you first get into Christianity? They tell you to go read the book of John, or they tell you to go read the book of Matthew, or they tell you to read this. Each person has their own starting point, but does it actually get the whole picture if you start with the book of John?
Yeah,
No.
each person has their own learning style too. Sometimes people read together. Sometimes people are auditory. Some people are experiential. Some people read. They don't really comprehend. Look, you can't make a one prescription fits all bullshit. We're too late in the game for that. You gotta broaden your perspective on that.
I never said that.
All right. Well, some people don't read.
I think it's a matter of being too lazy, Iona, on that part. It's just a matter of people's different learning styles.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying
Iona,
to say that.
Iona, you can come on here and ask questions all day long. Look at my buddy Shane. My buddy Shane, he's time restricted like I am. I'm a truck driver. I don't have the hours to sit at home and read like you might, okay? But guess what? How many people that have the time don't even pick up a book? Okay, Shane, he asked me, he said, is there a way I can get my phone to read these documents to me while I'm working? I said, sure. He's got an iPhone. I said, go download Voice Dream. It is the best app you can ever do with for PDF reading.
I'm not arguing that there are options. I'm just saying that, these words like lazy, things like that, we should just skip that. It's not productive.
I'm not going to skip the truth.
Yeah, you can say that, but that's not these people in these groups. I think it's, people just really like the engaging and sharing ideas about what they learn.
That's all right.
I agree with Pastor a little bit on that. There are some people that just want you to give them the quick answer and get to it so they can get to the end instead of going through the steps and learning the foundation.
And I'm sorry, Iona, if the truth hurts, I'm sorry.
It doesn't hurt me. I just think it doesn't sound good. You know what?
No,
we read the 0%. We in 13 hours the other night. We went through the whole book.
No, you're right. It don't sound good. But guess what? The truth never does sound good.
Yeah, but sometimes it's out of context. Yeah,
no, it's not out of context.
Sometimes it is.
Yes, it's not out of
Not
context.
everyone is lazy. Like $15 for flipping burgers. What are they going to buy for $15? Like nothing. It's not laziness. There might not be any other jobs available. You know?
There's jobs available all over the place.
It doesn't matter how much you make as long as helping the world.
Yeah, but like McDonald's, like sometimes they have no other choice. They have to work at McDonald's. You never know. You can't judge until you really know someone individually. You never know. You really don't know for sure.
Look, there is a million ways to make $1. You can. I told my son this. Hold on, Iona.
Hear it. It's
hold
so.
on, I'm not finished. I told my son at the age of 16, he's wanting to know what he can do to make money. I said, ask Grandma if you can borrow their lawnmower. I said, go around the neighborhood and say, hey, I'll mow your yard for $20.
That's what I did, but I'm just saying, like it's
And
different.
guess what he wouldn't do?
I don't know. He went to McDonald's and got a job instead. I don't know.
No, he didn't.
Fucking hell.
No, he sat and played video games in the basement all the time. Because why? He was lazy at the time.
He's programmed with electronics.
I was lazy at his age. My dad tried to teach me his business. I would go to sleep. The truth,
Hey,
the
Pastor.
truth does hurt, but it's
Pastor.
Yes, ma'am.
I got a question for you, okay?
Yeah.
I've got my vehicle registered with the US DOT as a lightweight commercial vehicle, and I'm in Georgia. I've already talked with the assistant manager at the driver's service, where she says there is no Georgia classification that can be given for a motor carrier license for driving that classification of a vehicle. They don't have it.
Okay.
What would be the remedy for that? Because, I mean, I've got her statement, and I've sent a letter on to the commissioner of the driver's services to find out what their remedy is, but it's like I'm in limbo on that.
Explain to me in a little better detail what are you trying to do? And
To find verification that I don't have a driver's license to drive the vehicle anymore because of the classification I put it under. I put it under as a lightweight commercial vehicle under 26,000 pounds, carrying less than 15 passengers, not for hire, and they don't have a classification for that.
Yeah, they don't. And that is actually, if it is a commercial vehicle, you have to have a license.
Yeah, you have to have a license, but they don't have a classification to give me.
Then I would find out who the head person in the state is. Write them a letter and say, look,
that's what I did today. I sent
license.
Yeah, I sent the commissioner of the driver's service a letter today.
Damn it, 42,000 pounds.
A couple of good words to write is the word expressed and implied. And the reason why is because you would either have to be implying that you're in commerce, or you'd have to be expressing you're in commerce, like a DOT number, etc. And when you say that you are neither implying nor expressing, and list the evidence is why, that could really help you be beneficial if you use those words. I yield.
That I'm neither expressing or implying?
Yeah, expressed or implied. Yep. You did not imply it, nor did you express it, that you were involved in commerce.
Yeah.
Right.
Expressed or implied is a very powerful legal term.
Yes, it's also legitimately equitable terms, too. Correct.
Okay.
Now, I bet you I slid too far. This load is all the way to the back door. That changes how things weigh.
Yeah, the more words that you can learn that have force and effect in law, the words that that are legitimized by legislation and by opinions of the court, they express themselves very explicitly with certain words. And in the law titles, the definition of words changes from title to title. So, but they have to explicitly express that in every title. And so when you start using words like implied and expressed, they're very explicit in the law, and they know exactly what you're talking about.
Right. Well, I know in the express statutes, there is no classification for what I'm needing.
Then your other option is to request an administrative hearing with the Department of Motor Vehicles or Transportation, whatever your state calls it, and tell them they are interfering with your ability to operate in commerce and make a living by not providing you what you need.
Well, I did that in the letter, asking for an official letter of opinion from the commissioner, and if he could forward it on to the attorney general for their official opinion, because the attorney general won't give an opinion unless it's from the commissioner.
Correct. Let's see. Let's see if by
until
chance,
there's
see if, go ahead.
20 people active, right, in this chat. How many people is in our group?
In this group here, in Floyd's group, 770. It says 104 online.
Right. So why isn't there 770 people know how to use a debit card?
Yeah. You're not wrong.
I'm just saying. That's all I'm saying. Because everybody here in this group is in search of the proper way of doing shit, or transferring to a trust and doing it that way.
They're all.
I get what you're saying, Raymond.
They're
I
all.
get what you're saying.
They're all here looking for information to fix their problems. But
right.
guess
So
what?
we need to make the problem a debit card.
Yeah. Yep, I know.
Everybody knows how to use the motherfucker. Everybody knows how to go into debt.
I've been saying that for a while, Raymond, if we could get a step-by-step.
And that's even if it's just this group of 770 people. We have to fix or remedy the shit that we catch from the government when we're doing business and transactions in commerce, whether it's trust law, commerce, just straight up reading law books all day long.
At the beginning of the conversation, are we like recommending not to use the debit card and to use the credit card, or do more people use? I wonder what the percentages are.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that either.
I only use
credit
credit.
card on transactions out here while working, but when I go home, I use my debit card for stuff around the house.
I never use debit, just credit.
That's what I heard you're supposed to do. When did you start doing that, Iona?
But see, that's bringing debit or credit. Go ahead, Iona.
Oh, I've just been doing that forever. Just because I don't buy a lot of things, and what I do buy because I don't have a lot of money is on credit.